of the Kingston Planning Board. Tonight is March 19th. It is 6:45 p.m. I'll start with introductions. To my left, we have Dennis Quintal, the town engineer, Rob Tersolo, Planning Board member, Peter Coffin, Planning Board member. I'm Robin Dubé, acting as chair for Lynn Merrill this evening. To my right is Robin Carter, our land use administrator. New to the board is Ellie Alessio, who is the selectman's representative to the planning board, and town planner Glenn Greenwood. We have 3 applications on the agenda this evening. Before we get to those, I'd like to first welcome Ellie officially. Lovely to have you. As well as read a letter that we received from Steve Padfield, who'd been an alternate member to the planning board for a period of time, and more recently a planning board member who has left the town or is leaving the town, so has given his resignation. So it reads, "Good morning, Robin. As you're aware, Dawn and I sold Memories Ice Cream last November. Since then, my ability to participate in the planning board was not impacted as I own other property. We found a home in Belmont, New Hampshire, and will be moving from Kingston on Tuesday, March 19th. I'm aware that being a resident in Kingston is a requirement for being a planning board member, therefore I will be resigning my position. Please accept my resignation effective immediately. At this point, I am not intending to attend meetings scheduled for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to sit on the planning board. It truly was an enjoyable experience, Steve." So would just look for the board to move to accept Steve's resignation.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Motion by Peter Coffin, second by Rob Tersolo. Other quick things, just sort of by way of process. When folks come up, whether applicants or anyone who wishes to come up during public comment, you'll see these little black microphones on the table. You just need to press until the green button is on and hold it relatively close to your face. It doesn't have to be super close. Okay, thank you. Leave it on the table. Just don't shuffle papers around it. There will be a point in time where we call the applicants up to review what it is that they're proposing. Town engineer, town planner will give comment, and then we'll open for public comment. I would ask that public comment be restricted to those times where public comment is open. And we learned during the last hearing that when there are conversations happening in the back of the room, it's really difficult for the rest of us to hear what's being talked about. We will start with the first application on the agenda, which is Selco Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless. This is a continued hearing from February 6th, located off Hunt Road, map R1, lot 1. Glenn, do you want to just give a quick overview of what it is we're talking about?
Sure. So this, as you said, is the second public hearing we're having on this proposal. We also had a site walk so that folks could take a look at the actual location of the proposed facility, as well as viewing the balloon test that showed what the 140 foot monopole tower would look like. We've subsequently received a revised site plan which addressed the majority of my questions about the first plan. And we also received a series of photographs that were the result of photoshopping in the tower from different vantage points using the balloon that was there and substituting in what the actual tower would look like. And that information was put online on the town website, as was the revised plan last week. And this will be a continuation of that process.
Okay. So we're considering an application for both a conditional use permit as well as site plan approval to construct and operate a 140-foot wireless telecommunication facility functioning as the pole that was referenced off Hunt Road. Would invite the applicant at this time to come up and talk about the proposal.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Mark Bodwin from the law firm Nixon Peabody on behalf of Verizon Wireless. To my right is Keith Valenti, the RF engineer for the project. Last time we were here, my colleague Chip did most of the talking, and he attended the site walk. He couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, due to a family emergency, so it's just us two. And hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions if you have any. Just by way of background, we were last here on February 6th. We presented the application. The board and some of the abutters had questions, and the board requested a balloon float be conducted. The balloon float was conducted on February 17, 2024. While I wasn't there, I understand the weather was pretty good. It was clear and wasn't too windy. And as part of that balloon float, we submitted what we call a photo simulation packet on March 13, which we can go through it if you'd like. It shows where all the photos were taken from, and then it shows the balloon, the red balloon, which was, again, the bottom of the balloon is 140 feet above ground level, and then immediately after that picture, on the next page, we superimposed what the structure would look like if it were constructed in that location. We also submitted an updated site plan addressing some of the concerns of staff, as the fire chief, as well as town engineer. And we also tried to address some of the concerns of the board and the abutters in that supplemental application, again, that we submitted on March 13 in connection with the fall zone, health effects, and diminution of value. So happy to go through that as you see fit.
Okay. I have quite a few comments from the public, and I guess I'm just wondering if we're going to need to read all of those officially into the record, correct?
Sure.
Okay. So why don't we start there? First, I will read the comment that was submitted from the Kingston Conservation Commission. Conservation has concerns regarding the location of the tower and work being done there. The area is on a south-facing rise with sandy soil, prime turtle nesting grounds with very large and important wetland complex nearby. We advise Selco to consult with New Hampshire Fish and Game non-game before any construction begins. Endangered blandlings turtles and threatened spotted turtles have probably been recorded in this area. First of all, thank you to all of the abutters who participated in the site walk. There was pretty good turnout for that. And I'm assuming some of them were among those who submitted public comment for this evening. The first is a letter to the Kingston Planning Board from the Hampstead Select Board, dated February 27th, 2024. Dear Town of Kingston Planning Board, we, the Town Hampstead Board of Selectmen, are formally expressing our concerns brought forth at our most recent Select Board meeting and various directed emails regarding the proposed cell tower that abuts one of our residential neighborhoods. There are 2 lots in the proposed plan that are directly affected by the fall zone, utilizing a portion of their property. The other concerns expressed were those of reduced property values and health risks associated with transmission. We're aware that several of our residents have attended the meetings and have expressed their concerns in person, And as a responsible board, we would like to be included in the dissemination of information, if feasible, via email or otherwise. The next is a letter from Lisa and Kevin Hodge at 13 Catherine Avenue in East Hampstead, and they sent photos as well. Hello, Kingston Planning Board and copying Hampstead Selectmen. We're writing about the proposed cell tower on property near my East Hampstead property. We're concerned about the negative impact such a tower may have on the homes in my neighborhood. We urge you to respectfully consider the concerns of our neighborhood and explore other options where the tower may not be as visible or compromise our well-being and the investment we've made in our homes. Although we are not abutters to the property of the proposed site, we did take some photos of the February 17th balloon test as seen from our property at 13 Catherine Avenue in East Hampstead. We're forwarding these photos so you can see how visible the tower may be to others in our development of 40 homes. Catherine Avenue, Shawn Drive, Rosewood Circle, and Ellison Avenue. We're disappointed to see the balloon from every room on the back side of our house, a bedroom and 2 baths on the 2nd floor, as well as the kitchen and powder room on the 1st floor. We could also see the balloon from our screened-in porch where we spend most of our days in the summer. We hope these photos help you in deciding to do the right thing, not just for the community of Kingston, but for the community at large. Okay, I'll just read there. Also sending photos were Doug Boole at 83 Ellison Avenue. Doug Boole again at 3041 Main Street in Plastow. Doug Boole, it looks like for Bruce Randall. View from front porch of 67 Ellison Avenue. The next was a picture at 70 Ellison Avenue, and that's Douglas Boole and Stephanie Boole. We have a letter from Dave Heidler at 3 Shawn Drive in East Hampstead, who also sent photos. Dear Kingston Planning Board, I took my, it says got, but I'm assuming that's a dog, for a walk through the neighborhood next to the Kimball property where the proposed cell tower during this morning's balloon test. I was able to see the balloon not only from Ellison Ave, but also from Rosewood Ave. This cell tower will negatively affect our neighborhood's property values and would be an eyesore. Is there a reason the tower can't be moved further from our neighborhood on Mr. Kimball's property? The proposed tower is 50 feet from our neighbor's property and it falls in that direction and land on their property even if it broke in half. Can Verizon make the tower to look like a tree? I've seen this type while traveling in New Jersey. Attached are pictures I took. The one with the circle around the balloon is from Rosewood Ave, the others are from Ellison Ave. And lastly, we have a letter from Kirsten and Nicholas Lander at 90 Ellison Avenue in East Hampstead. Hello, I'm writing to you with concerns of the possible Verizon cell tower that's proposed to be installed behind my property. Please see pictures attached while the balloon was out. One is taken from my back deck, another from my kitchen window, then taken of my house with clear view of the tower above my house. This is very unappealing and will affect our property values. Please consider moving the tower to a more remote location away from abutting property. Those were the submitted comments. One more. Okay, and one more that came in this evening from Meredith Prince. Submitted on behalf of the Prince family, Rosewood Circle residents. To the members of the Kingston Planning Board, my name is Meredith Prince. I apologize for such a last-minute email, but I understand there's a meeting tonight that will address the proposed cell tower that will abut my neighborhood in East Hampstead. I am now unfortunately unable to attend this meeting, so I wanted to formally address my family's concerns. My husband and I, our 2 children, and our 2 dogs are residents at 7 Rosewood Circle in East Hampstead. We're concerned that this cell phone tower will undoubtedly reduce property values of many in this neighborhood. People are drawn to this very quiet neighborhood due to the beautiful Victorian and colonial style homes with underground power and cable lines. Many homes are also surrounding by conservation land. It has such an elegant charm to it. Adding the cell phone tower visible for the majority of homes on Ellison and some on Rosewood Circle will unfortunately be a huge eyesore and dramatically take away from the elegance of the neighborhood. Many towns like Hampstead and Kingston that have adorable small town vibe that many of its citizens are drawn to. Cell phone towers as visible as this just really take away from that and will, I believe, steer potentially buyers away from our neighborhood, as well as other surrounding neighborhoods and properties in surrounding towns. Our biggest concern is the potential health risk of living in such proximity to this tower. There are many children and young families that live in this neighborhood, and it seems there is not enough research to show the serious long-term effects the transmission from these towers could potentially cause. In my opinion, having better cell service is just not enough reason to put so many people's lives in potential harm's way, especially where there are so many young children involved. For these reasons, my family asks that you reconsider and deny having the cell phone tower built at this location. We seriously thank you for reconsidering this matter, the Prince family, Rosewood Circle. Glenn, do you want to do your comments?
Certainly. So I had a first round of comments that were provided to the applicant, and they submitted a revised plan. And of the 14 comments I had, I think there are only 4 that haven't been resolved. And when I say resolved, it's not really something that they or I could resolve. They're really issues being brought before the board for your consideration, so I wouldn't expect that they would be resolved. They addressed all of the issues I had with the plan that were in their power to address. They made all the changes that I'd asked for. So it's really a matter of the board discussing with them those issues that I have on my memo that aren't addressed, and whether or not the board wants to do additional RF engineering review, having a further discussion or coming to some sort of resolution about the fact that the ball zone doesn't remain entirely on the property of the site that's being used. And I think if we could get over those issues, sorry? And I hope that if we can get through those issues, we have a better understanding of how the board can move forward.
Dennis, did you have any comments for this evening?
I had my original comments sent on January 12th, and I was just going through the stuff that was sent today. My phone, I haven't really gone through it all, so I can't really answer that. To say that it's answered all of my questions, I know that the wetland scientist stamp was on the plan, but it's hard to read. It only came out, there was only part of the stamp that was on the plan that I could see on that. The drop zone, I did read the letter that was submitted by the engineer about how if it did fail, it would break in half. That's an opinion by one engineer. Being that close to the property line is always a concern from abutters and whatever about a failure of a structure like that. So I think a full drop zone for the full radius is probably not uncalled for. I mean, it's certainly something that could be put on the plan and enforced. As far as the location of it, I don't really see any reason why it can't be moved away from the property line, and I think that's one of my comments. And again, I think I need a little more time to review the revised plans and go over it again to see if there's any other comments that I might have along with the comments that I submitted in the past.
Before we open for public comment, any thoughts, questions, comments from the board?
Yeah, I think Dennis addressed what has been the biggest concern, and that we also, as Glenn will remember from the site walk, was addressed. We went up and looked at the area that was farther away, but still the same distance from the state highway, and was closer to the Plastow border. Slight rise in elevation. It had quite a few advantages. And as Dennis says, there doesn't seem to be any real reason why it couldn't be located there. I think in your original presentation, you said that the landowner wanted to maintain access to his back property. However, the location where it is immediately adjacent to his road, whereas if you moved it towards the Plastow line, the road would be completely unaffected by it. Additionally, the underground cables that you said would feed the power to the and obviously the signals to the tower have to come out of the ground, go up a pole, go across his access road, back down and over to your facility, which seems to be, you know, a bit unsightly, but also would make it susceptible to damages from windstorms and other things, and his large equipment that he uses for harvesting trees. And the biggest thing that was driving this, the fact that it was right at the absolute minimum distance for the town setback regulations from the property line, was, as Dennis says, the fall zone. And the fact that our regulation, that fall zone is created to state that no residential structure can exist within that fall zone. You have to have that much radius, the 110% of the tower height. But you and we cannot encumber the abutter's property and tell someone in Hampstead that they can't build on a portion of their own property because there's a cell tower there. And I think you'd have to accept the fact that you would be liable to have to move the tower if a residential structure was built within your fall zone. The letter from your engineer regarding the structural failure modes of the monotower used the term theoretical failure point of the cell tower and predicted mode of a wind-induced failure would be local buckling. And the question I have for you is, has this been tested? Given the statement of the engineer that it was theoretical and predicted, do you know if these monopoles have been tested?
Yes, they've all been tested, just like
Tested to the failure point?
they've all been engineered to break at the midpoint.
They've been
or
engineered to
higher.
break that.
Right.
Have they been tested to their failure point?
I mean, I'm not sure how you want me to answer that. They've been engineered to break at the midpoint or
Okay,
higher.
so the answer is you don't think they have been tested to their
No,
failure
that's
point?
not what I'm saying. I'm saying that these towers have been around for 2 decades within adjacent towns, right next to the Bedford police station, and they haven't fallen down. They don't fall down. If they do, they're engineered to break at the midpoint or higher.
Okay.
So it would fall down on itself, right?
So if a stress riser was formed at the base and the failure mode was started at that stress riser, which is a defect in the metal that allows metal failure, you have never, you don't know how, in fact, it would fail. And that's why they use those terms theoretical and predicted, because the engineer is telling us with those words that it hasn't been put on in a laboratory or put in a testing situation to see where it will break, if it actually does buckle. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you are then liable if you have a cell tower that does in fact fail and falls
onto the abutting property, we as a planning board, especially a planning board in an adjacent town, cannot encumber that property and tell that landowner they can't build a structure there. If they build a structure there and your tower falls, you're liable. You're taking probably a pretty good risk that it's not going to happen, but I just don't see, with all the other factors affecting the moving of that structure, including allowing better access to his backland on the existing road that he's got, the ability to bury your cable access to the tower completely, the fact that the slope goes slightly uphill there and is probably 15, 20 feet higher at that point, closer to the Plastow line than it is in the current location. You could have a shorter tower to get the same height over surrounding territory. Or you could get another 15, 20 feet out of the existing tower height. So the biggest factor here is and the one that we're deciding, obviously we're not going to address the health aspects because, as you pointed out before, that's not within our purview. Our ordinance and the TCA do allow us to address the aesthetic aspect of it. And we have a lot of abutters who send a lot of pictures, we can show them if we really need to, that give you a good idea of the visual impact on their land. And I just can't understand why you would prefer to go with the current location than to move it back farther away from that line. The land on the Plastow, Plastow side is mostly town forest, as it is in Kingston. You may not have to camouflage it. That could be a condition that this board would require, is that if you put it up in its current location, that it be camouflaged. It might not require that if you moved it. I think that you should seriously consider moving it so that, as the chief engineer for the town had recommended, that the fall zone falls completely within the town boundaries. Even the direct antenna height would cross the boundary, not just the 110%, but just the 100%. And as I say, the select board comment on this, that we read at the first hearing, was that, and you responded that it wouldn't require any special legal agreements, but was that the fall zone, the question was from them, would the fall zone crossing into a residential zone require some kind of easement from them? And I would certainly recommend that you consider moving it. I think that would be the easiest solution. It would address a lot of issues, including having to bring the access lines up and over the road. So I was wondering if you can address that.
Happy to. Thanks for the comment. So if Verizon Wireless had the opportunity to site all of their cell towers in the middle of a 100-acre lot where no one could ever see it, there's no fall zone issues, they would always do that. But the land has to be available for lease. Sure. There's only so many lots in New Hampshire that are 100 acres, right, that you can't see, that aren't close to any residential developments or lot lines. We've scoured those, right? We're limited in where we can go based upon where our landlord will allow us to go. And there are other certain technical requirements due to RF that we have to meet. So you say, it isn't as though we can unilaterally just choose to put it wherever we want, right? We're restricted in that sense. But I appreciate the comment. We just can't choose to move it wherever we want, unfortunately. But the point is well taken.
What is the restriction that you're citing here that keeps you from locating it 100 feet farther away?
The land has to be available for lease by our
So you're saying
landlord.
that of that whole lot, that 50-foot square is the only place that's available, that it was available for lease on that entire
That was the
property?
arrangement with the landlord, is that location.
That's the arrangement you had, but for that location, but.
Yeah. It's only space available for lease.
So if you told them that you needed to move it in order to move it farther away from the property line, that he would not lease you another piece of land of the same size a few hundred feet away that would meet your requirements?
I mean, that was the arrangement made between Verizon's site acquisition folks and the landlord. I didn't have any direct communication with the landlord on that negotiation.
Okay.
So I can't give you a definitive answer, but again, we're always trying to find the best location on the lot that'll keep everyone happy. And we don't like to have these conversations where people think it's gonna fall on their home. You know what I mean? It isn't the goal, right? We're trying to put it
I
someplace.
understand it's not the goal,
Right.
but I'm
Right.
suggesting that when you put that radius circle around and when you saw that you were only going to be 50 feet, you know, putting a 140-foot pole 50 feet from the property line that of a residence, that should have set off little flags, and I would think that since that is an unbuilt lot.
Again, sir, I can't say why our landlord chose to put it there, but that's what we were offered to lease. And I'm not sure how else I can explain it to you.
Okay, I get it.
Besides that, and just to clarify a few things, right?
Yeah.
The compound is 50 by 50. The pole is actually, if it were constructed, 88 feet from the lot line.
Right.
Okay? So while you may not agree with this, if it were to fall down, which it won't, it's designed to break at the midpoint or higher, right? So 70 feet or higher. So if it does fall down, it would not go on anyone else's property but our landlord's property. Your town doesn't have a fall zone ordinance or language. So what you have is 125% setback requirement, which we meet because the nearest off-site residential structure is 538 feet away. So we meet your ordinance. Placing on the applicant extraneous terms and restrictions is unreasonable. Like, we meet your ordinance. All we can do is look at the ordinance and say, okay, this is where we want it to go, so it has to go. What sort of relief do we need? You know what I mean? So we can't say there's a fall zone when there isn't. And I take issue with the fact that you think we're encumbering someone else's land, because we're not, right? I mean, there's no requirement in your ordinance to get an easement. There's no requirement in your ordinance that even refers to fall zone, really. It's just a setback, and we meet the setback by hundreds of feet. So again, we're just trying to meet the obligations of any applicant in your town, and that's what we're looking at, is the plain language. That's all we can do. So I understand you take issue with our engineer's report, but again, it's not my opinion. The guy is an engineer. I can certainly provide you with his qualifications to get you more comfortable that, you know, I can provide more information on what sort of testing was done or wasn't done, if that's an issue. But again, we submitted other photographs, right, in the supplemental application that shows these towers exist, and they're all over, and they're often next to gas pumps. They're often next to municipal buildings or residential homes. And this isn't just in New Hampshire or Bedford or Kingston or Hampstead. It's all over the country. And I mean, these things, right, they don't fall down. So I'm not sure what to say.
Okay, I'm just pointing out that they are not restricted from building up to their property line. It's just that,
I don't know what the restriction is in Hampstead.
Hampstead,
right?
they have 100, Hampstead, by the way, we are, the state law does give us the authority to use abutting, or to consider abutting towns' ordinances. And their zoning ordinance, that's being Hampstead, communication towers setbacks are the tower height plus 20 feet. So that would mean that this would be 160-foot setback is their requirement from property lines, not from residences. Ours, the fall zone is you can't make it within 125% of the distance to the residence. Now, there is no residential structure there.
Right.
But for the sake of the fact that the town of Hampstead and the town of Kingston are going to coexist side by side for a long time after you and I are both long gone, and the cell tower is probably long gone, we tried to, and the abutters are still abutters. They have full legal standing here and standing to appeal any decision we make here. We try to respect our neighbors. And so the town of Hampstead has weighed in from the select board. And I was just looking for the ordinance. I believe it's RSA 674-53, land affected by municipal boundaries. And that's the one that gives us that that reference that we can consider. Here we go. A planning board, in determining whether an application satisfies its regulations, may consider the effect of the proposal on adjoining municipalities. There's some other language in here that if it's planned on a private road or class 4, 5, or 6 highway located in an adjoining municipality, shall be deemed approved. Sorry. I highlighted something that referred to it being off of a private road, but since this is from a state highway, that particular municipal road requirements, if Route 121A was a municipal road, not a state highway, you'd have additional requirements for your site plan. But yeah, that's the second paragraph, paragraph 2 of the RSA 674-53 that would require us to consult the abutting towns select board about this application. That didn't apply, but it does. But the part that says that we may consider the effect of the proposal on adjoining municipalities is something we take seriously, since we have to work with them, and they can, we would expect them to respect Kingston's abutters when they have a project. So I'm pointing that out. I don't know the difficulty of Dennis's and our suggestion from our first meeting that it be moved, and from the site walk that it be moved. But that's what the Hampstead ordinance is 160-foot setback from the property line. As you said, we follow the Kingston ordinance. There's nothing residents there. They could, if they wanted to, build an ADU back there, whatever their setback is from the property line, and it would be in the fall zone. And I think if they did that, and God forbid something happened, that the tower broke off at the base and fell down on top of that residence, that liability wouldn't fall on us. It would fall entirely on Verizon. So,
That's right. If it fell down, Verizon would be responsible for it, right?
yeah.
The citizens of Kingston could have revised their zoning ordinance to adopt the same provision that Hampstead did, but they chose not to. So when an applicant comes to a town, they have to look at the ordinance that's relevant. And here it is your own ordinance. So we tried to meet that. We met it with flying colors. And all we're asking for is a fair shake, using your own ordinance. So,
But what Peter's saying is that the state also gives us permission to look at the abutting towns ordinance as well in consideration of the proposal.
fair, agreed. And then I can read the federal law on the matter, right? So there's all sorts of overlapping jurisdiction, right? The Telecommunications Act of 1996 is supposed to preempt all state and local laws, and I can read it to you, and I think I will, because it came up, right? The TSA establishes national standards that apply to zoning applications for wireless facilities and place limitations on local zoning authority. These standards preempt or override inconsistent state and local laws, so they must be considered by zoning boards or commissions in making decisions on applications for wireless facilities. Or an applicant for an installation of a wireless communications facility to provide communications services seeks zoning relief as required by the municipal zoning ordinance. Federal law imposes substantial restrictions affecting the standard for granting the requested relief. The TCA provides that the regulation of the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities by any state or local government shall not, quote, prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of personal wireless service. So that, I mean, it's not like clear as day, right? But what we're trying to
It's very
prove
clear,
to you,
and we can't put any restrictions on you that would make it prohibitively expensive or to prohibit it. However, moving it wouldn't prohibit it. And
if it's not leasable,
it's,
right? So, I mean, all I'm trying to say, my job is, because I go over the state and just have these difficult conversations, is to show you that, okay, we have this search ramp, and there's this gap in coverage, and we do our best to find landlords that have lots that are large enough to accommodate it. And sometimes we hit the jackpot, and we got right in the middle of the lot, everyone's happy, and sometimes we have a gap in coverage, and our landlord says, no, you gotta put it over here, okay? And sometimes we have these difficult conversations, and it isn't as though we're choosing to put it right there. It's just that's what's available, and that's what's gonna give us the coverage we need to build out our network as allowed under the TSA. So we'll do our best with everyone here to try and accommodate everyone, but at some point, you know what I mean, we drill down into a location, into one landowner, and we get to a point where we look at your zoning ordinance, we say, great, we meet the setbacks, okay, let's go for it, you know, and here we are. So it isn't as though we're intentionally trying to put it in a spot that everyone dislikes. We're trying to put it into a spot where it meets the zoning ordinance and does the job, right? And I try to show with the photographs that, you know, these things are all over. You see them all over. You see them in subdivisions in Kingston. You see them in subdivisions all over. So the perfect spot is sometimes available, but not always. And we always try and find the best spot for everyone.
all right, so we'll move on from that and say that this, Selco doesn't have the option of moving the antenna, and as we discussed the last time, that the alternative would be to camouflage it. And we had mentioned the whole pine tree thing, and that a lot of the abutting comments had mentioned the pine tree camouflaging thing. And I think when we get to the public comments, they can address what they would feel about the camouflaging. Glenn had his hand up earlier, and he wanted to address something that we had brought up.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Glenn.
when it's appropriate, I'd like to say something. Just in response to your comment that there is nothing in our ordinance that we are predicating this discussion on, and I disagree with that. In my comment letter, one of the three things that I pointed out in the second iteration is that there is an issue that hasn't been resolved. It needs to be resolved by the board, and it is the list of factors that the board is supposed to consider in relationship to a decision. And the second one of those factors is the nature, it reads B, the proximity of the tower to residential development or zones. And in this case, when you look at the impact of the tower being a quasi-industrial use on the view shed in proximity of residences that are clearly rural residential uses. They're not urban residences. They're not even village residences. They're literally country residences. And I think our ordinance does say that we're supposed to make that determination. And I can't see, in good faith, I don't look at your response as a straight-faced response. You're simply saying you spoke with someone you wanted to lease land from before hearing anything from the public, and you made a decision that said the only location on a 50-acre parcel is directly on the property line, directly behind homes that, granted, are in a different town than Kingston, but are nonetheless residential in nature and not at all industrial in nature. And you're asking us to make a decision about a quasi-industrial visual being placed right next to a residential area. And I believe that our ordinance says when we are looking at the factors for our decision, we are supposed to look at that. And until this board fleshes that out, I will leave that comment as one that hasn't been addressed.
Now, all I can say is, right? So the board has the rights, broad rights. As an applicant, we can see all we need is a CUP and site plan approval. There's no zoning relief required. The language you cite on the proximity to residential neighborhoods, totally agree. But we'll look to the setback that you put in, and we meet it by hundreds of feet. So we look to guidance in the ordinance itself to say, okay, what would the board think is reasonable? Because they put in a specific figure, 125% from off-site residential structures. So that's what we go with. We say, okay, so that must be reasonable, if that's what the requirement is, you know what I mean? So that's how an applicant looks at an ordinance, is, okay, what do we have to meet? How can we arrange the project and with our landlord and do it in a way that's gets everyone, you know what I mean? We're trying, right? And it isn't as though we're intentionally putting it in a location that is problematic. It's just, we thought it was the right spot.
It feels that way because you thought it was the right spot. But that was your thought upon having no public input.
Well, I mean,
simply a look at what seemed to be the most convenient deal for the person who owns the land. And I'm not saying they don't have a right to determine where on their site they want to allow that.
right.
I'm simply saying that if their spot where they feel comfortable allowing that on their property contradicts an ordinance that we say should take into consideration how that structure will impact a residence, I think that leads us to some sort of impasse. Because it isn't, the setback requirement is one of physicality, but it's not one of, the setback issue isn't the only issue that draws out what the impact of the structure is. That's done visually. In this case, there are tons of areas where visually having more than 150 feet is legitimately required. And I'm very upset at the thought that the landowner wouldn't hear what the public comment is and consider that he could shift it 200 feet further away and overcome this entire issue.
I'm also not hearing in your response to that question when Peter brought it up, that conversation has happened with the landlord and that he hasn't been willing to do that, if that were in fact feedback that was given and the only condition under which the CUP would be considered by the board. I didn't hear you say that was a deal breaker for the lease.
Right, I didn't say that because that wouldn't be accurate, right? We haven't had that conversation because we haven't gone through the process to get all the public input. Or we can't file an application with a proposed location, you know what I mean? We have to sign up a lease, show the board we're serious. You're not going to consider an application, but we don't have some land entitlement already, you know what I mean? So again, we try and look at the ordinance, we say, okay, would this location, will it meet our requirements? Will it meet the zoning ordinance? Do we need any variances? Great, no, right? Okay, so maybe this will work, right? So we'll do our best presentation to the board, and try and work with everyone, with our landlord wants it, with where we need it, and where the board wants it. But again, we can't seek public input before we have a definitive agreement with the landlord yet. So, but point well taken. I mean, we're trying our best, right? But again, I hate to harp on this, but the TCA says, doesn't take aesthetics into account, right? You can't consider health effects. It's just like, will this fill the gap? And are there other locations available to the applicant? And we're trying to show you that we did our homework, and this is a location that's available to us right now. We're doing our best.
Go ahead, Dennis. Microphone.
Sorry. So I've been listening to the conversation here. A couple of comments I want to make is, number one, about the report from the engineer about the theoretical breaking of the pole. That's not guaranteed. That's a theoretical comment. And so that to me is not justifying enough to the planning board to justify that the protection of the abutter is being protected. And not only, it isn't just the abutter, it's another town. You're not just protecting the impacts to an abutter, you're talking about the impacts to an abutting town as well. So I really think that the other comment, a part of the comment that I wanted to make was, I'm a little confused because typically when we have an application come into the town, it's an application by the landowner and who wants to develop a site plan and have possibly lease a portion of their property for a building or whatnot. All I'm hearing is the person who's leasing it coming to the planning board for approval, not the owner of the property. Am I wrong in saying that it's not the property owner that's coming before the planning board? I'm a little confused about that because typically it's the owner.
It's very common for us to receive an application that the only input from the owner is that they understand what the application is and that they support it. And oftentimes things get negotiated that change what a site plan looks like before final approval is
That's what I'm getting at, is the fact that
it really isn't unusual for an abutter, I mean for a landowner, to be fairly hands-off during the process when there's someone that's proposing to lease the land, and they do all of the discussions.
But when it gets to this point where it's a big dispute between the tower people and the landowner, I would think that if it's a deal breaker, I would think the landowner would want to be here to hear it and make a compromise and hopefully get it approved by for his benefit. I guess that's all I needed to say at this point.
We submitted Exhibit G of our application, this proof of landowner consent to the application, which is what the town requires in this instance. Correct.
Yeah, and that's, as Glenn pointed out, that's very normal that we get applications from people who are proposing to buy a property, and they just, we even have a standard form that the landowner signs saying they're aware of the application. They give permission to the applicant, and we'll have often signed a purchase and sales agreement that is contingent upon planning approval for their project. So that is not an abnormal situation. However, it's usually an entire property that it's at stake. So in this case, it's a small square in a property. And that's why we're suggesting that it would be very much worth your while going back and saying that this could be an all or nothing. You know, either we can move it 300 feet or 500 feet this way, and off the other side of your road, and be at least as much out of your way as the original site was, or you don't get an opportunity to make any money at all off this, because because in spite of what you said about the transportation, what's the middle word? Transportation
Communications Act.
Communications, yes, SA, whatever it is. It does permit us to consider aesthetics, and we do have that in our board. And I said, we concede the whole health thing, as Chris Bashaw said last time. People have the right to bring that up. We just don't have the ability to negotiate as long as you meet the federal standards. The aesthetics was the area that we were all concerned about. That's why we've been beating this one to death, and it really be worth your while taking this back to try to appease not only the abutters but the planning board and everyone else. So to get off that subject, and I know that we are up against a shot clock which ends on April 26th. So if it's not told, by request for continuance from the applicant to negotiate whatever they need to, we're forced into making a decision by the next month's meeting. But he did have a question about the generator. In the application, you said the generator is solely for backup to the electrical backup, the battery backup system, and it only goes on then. But my experience has been that most of these sites run generator testing. How often? What's the frequency?
It's once a week for 30 minutes, and they can be set to a time whenever they want, so like generally around like 10 a.m. Everyone's usually away from the house,
Okay, so I think that would be something we could get input from the abutters as far as day of the week and time of day and whatever else. But the other question is, the type of muffling situation, the frequency that it generates, whether it's creates ground vibration. Is it a diesel generator or a gas, liquefied natural gas generator, or do you know what kind of generators?
Well, both can be spec'd. The standard generator is diesel. It's a dual tank generator on a cement block, and I think the plans and specs of the generator likely would have like the decibel levels. I can certainly try and get that for you. That makes sense.
I think it would be very useful to the abutters, because this is going to have an effect. Directing the direction of the outflow of the exhaust, for example. I think Dennis could probably help you with that more than I can. But as far as sound engineering this so that it's not going straight up and bouncing off the cloud layer, it should be headed towards the uninhabited areas of the two town forests that you're next to. It should be isolation mounted on a pad so that especially if it's diesel, you don't get the low frequency ground vibration going in. I would recommend not diesel, because for those of us who live near anybody who idles a diesel, even a pickup truck, it's a really annoying sound and carries great distances because of its frequency. So yeah, that's the type of thing that it should have been in the application, but I think you need to come up with some facts and figures and mitigation efforts along that line.
Well, I mean, until we give you the information on the decibel levels, what are we mitigating, So if you want plans and specs on the diesel generator that we would customarily put there, we can certainly provide that.
Okay, yeah.
By the next hearing.
Yeah.
And the orientation of it, certainly we can provide that information as well.
Yeah. All right.
At this point, any more comment or questions from the board before we move to public comment? No? Glenn?
Could I just ask one thing before we go to public comment?
Of course.
This has gone a little longer than I thought it would, and would you just ask if there's anybody in the audience that isn't aware that the the
Hawks Ridge.
Hawks Ridge proposal won't happen tonight. I shudder to think that there could be someone sitting in the audience, and then they're gonna find out in a half hour or whatever, that they've asked
Thank
to
you.
continue.
That's really valid. So anyone who's here for the second hearing, the Hawks Ridge Way of South Kingston, the applicant has requested continuation and that will not be heard tonight. So if that is what brought you here this evening, you're more than welcome to stay, but we won't be getting to your hearing.
That is not, no.
No.
That's the one after, scheduled after Hawks Ridge, and that is very much on.
All right, so at this point, we will move to public comment. It is 7:46, we'll open. I will ask that anyone who comes forward, if the applicant wouldn't mind clearing a seat. Anyone who comes forward, please turn on the microphone, state your name and your address, and then feel free to give your comment. Who's up first? Yes, if that's how you travel.
So first, is there a way I can present this? So this is actually...
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, name and address first.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
My name is Stephanie...
Push the
Oh, yeah.
button. There you go. Let go.
There you go.
Sorry. My name is Stephanie Boulay. I live at 70 Ellison Avenue. Most of the neighborhood, a lot of people could not come tonight, but we have signatures from Ellison, Catherine, Rosewood, that all are feeling the same way, and I've attached the letter that everybody got so that they are aware of what's happening, because, us as abutters were the only one that were notified. So this is several, maybe 40, 50 signatures from our neighborhood that all are against this, and you've received some of the duplicate emails. So, but this is all signatures that, this is all our whole neighborhood does not want it there. So
I'm proposing, I guess, that if you want to read whatever the content of the letter is,
Yep.
and then maybe just qualify the number of
Yep.
signatures.
Cellco Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless is proposing to construct a cell phone tower that will be located 500 feet from the structures located at 80 and 86 Ellison Avenue, close enough to that these properties will fall within the fall zone of the tower. The owner of the property in East Kingston, where the tower will be located, has 50-plus acres of land on this site. This massive metal structure will loom 20 to 40 feet over the tree line and decimate the natural beauty and rural feeling of our neighborhood. The presence of such structures can negatively impact property values due to perceived health risks and aesthetic reasons. They have estimated a negative impact of 9.6% of properties within a visual range of the cell phone tower. The Department of Housing and Urban Development classifies a cell phone tower as a hazard and nuisance, requiring appraisers to adjust property values due to the effect of the marketability. We understand the need for improved cellular service, but we believe there are alternative solutions that do not involve placing these structures within close proximity to our homes. We urge that the Kingston Planning Board to reconsider this decision and explore other options that will not compromise the well-being or financial security of residents. And then it just says the next Kingston Planning Board meeting will discuss the proposal Tuesday, March 19th at 6:45. Please attend to voice your concerns. And that's there's about 35. So these are a lot of the residences along Ellison, and Catherine, and Rosewood that are all affected by the cell phone tower. So it's nobody that isn't affected by it.
And Sean Drive.
And Sean Drive. Okay. And that was also David Heidler that had sent in his letter. So I just people couldn't be here, so we were trying to get, a voice heard for those that couldn't be here. So.
And is there a copy of that we can?
You can have
for
this.
the record? Okay.
That's what, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a quick comment and then he will speak. So, to me, to hear, that Verizon is not willing to be fair and equitable to us. And he's saying, they're saying that they want, they're within the, within their rights. But we just want to say we have rights too, and I believe that you've all heard them, and I just feel that this will definitely impact, our homes, our kids play back there, and I don't feel safe with that so close to our house. And he has more to say, sorry.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Doug Boulay, and again, we live at 70 Ellison Ave, and so ourselves and our neighbors, a lot of our neighbors are here tonight. We're concerned about this proposal for many reasons. I mean, we've already talked about it, but so we've already covered a lot of the reasons that I have, prepared remarks on, but I'm going to go through them anyways. So again, this is such a close proximity to our house. It's 500 or 600 feet away from our house. It's going to have an effect on our property value, the environment, noise pollution, which we just talked about with the diesel generators, just the safety and the overall beauty of our neighborhood, which Meredith wrote very nicely in her letter that she sent today. So I walked to the site with the planning board members on the day of the balloon test. I submitted a whole bunch of pictures about the tower from many different spots. So I'm here tonight to ask you all to consider relocating the tower to another spot on the property, since like we've already all covered, he's got 50+ acres that he could choose from. I think it's a reasonable request to ensure that all the landowners are treated equitably, right? The landowners on Ellison Avenue shouldn't be at risk of losing property values, while Mr. Kimball benefits from the lease payments that he's going to get from Verizon. Relocating the tower to a site further removed from our homes would be in accordance with the purpose and the goals stated in Kingston's Telecommunications Facility Ordinance, Article 410.2, Section B, and that states, reduce adverse impacts such facilities may create, including but not limited to impacts on aesthetics, environmentally sensitive areas, historically significant locations, flight corridors, health and safety by injurious accidents to person and property, and prosperity through protection of property values. Relocating the tower would also follow a recommendation made in 2020 by a New Hampshire commission to study the environment and health effects of evolving 5G technology. So I just want to cover some of these points that are in your telecommunications ordinance. So aesthetics, I know we've beaten aesthetics to death here, but the balloon test showed the tower is going to be very visible from our street. I'll see the tower every time I'm in my backyard. I'll see it every time I look out the back windows of my house. I'm going to see it every time I drive down my driveway. Our neighbors across the street are more elevated than we are. They're all going to see it. It's very obvious. I took a photo from 67 Ellison across the street from us. The tower is sticking way up over the trees. One house on Main Street, they're here tonight. They're going to be able to see the tower from their dining room window, from their bedroom window. So the tower, it's unsightly. It's going to detract from the beauty of our neighborhood that we already talked about. It's going to have the 6-foot fence with chain link around it and barbed wire. We're concerned about how many trees are going to have to be taken down to put that fence in. Is that going to take down some of the trees that could block it? In terms of environmentally sensitive areas, we see a lot of wildlife in our yards. We actually saw 6 deer in our backyard a couple of days ago. I know you've already talked about wetlands and some turtles, which I did not know about. So we're concerned with what impact it's going to have on the environment. For health and safety, in the event of a storm or a natural disaster, the tower could fall that we've already talked about. And in response to Verizon's comments, the tower is not going to fall, but look what's happening with Boeing airplanes lately. Pieces aren't supposed to fall off them, but it happens. Prosperity through protection of property values. So National Association of Realtors notes that a negative impact of 9.6% on property values within visible ranges of cell phone towers. Stephanie already mentioned HUD classifying cell phone towers as hazards and nuisance. It requires appraisers to make adjustments to value due to the effect on the marketability. So, as I mentioned before, we think we should consider a solution that's equitable for both the landowner, Mr. Kimball, and all the other landowners, such as ourselves. Noise pollution, so just talked about it, right? There's going to be this diesel generator test. That's going to be a nuisance. And also speaking of that, there's lots of shooting on that property. There's shooting all the time, every day. So,
But we're saying
what
if it's a
somebody
safety
shoots that?
impact of the shooting with the cell phone tower and say like a generator or hitting the metal of the cell phone tower, I'm just saying that if it could,
Yeah, what if a bullet hit the diesel generator? Right?
or if it hit like the metal and ricocheted somewhere else. I'm just putting it out there that it was never mentioned before. They're shooting very often. Mr. Kimball lets a lot of people shoot back there. So, which is, they're right, of course, but this may impact, that it is a safety concern because it could be potential fire hazard if I don't know the logistics of it, but the two together don't seem to mix well.
And then just in closing, we've spoken to a lot of our friends, coworkers about this, and everyone's reaction is just like, oh, the cell phone tower is going up behind your house. Might as well sell your house before it goes up. So it's just a general sentiment that people don't want them right behind their property.
And they don't want to buy houses near them. And, I understand that the FCC has dictated what you can take into consideration for health concerns, but there is a perceived health concern. So someone's perception, they're coming to purchase my house, they might not care what the FCC says. They're going to say, I'm not going to buy that house. Why would I buy that house near a cell phone tower? That's going to give me cancer. We can't take that away, and nobody can persuade somebody to buy a house that it's safe. So the perceived health concern, I believe, is an issue. Even though you can't take a real health concern into consideration, you can't change other people's minds of what they would be willing to purchase. So somebody might not be willing to purchase my house because of the cell phone tower. Disguised or not, they might disguise it. The disguise, in my opinion, isn't a reasonable. If it was further back and disguised, okay, that's fine. And again, we're open to relocating it. We're not saying, no, stay away. We understand, move it back. And I don't think a disguise, if you've seen the disguise, I've looked up many online to see, okay, does this look reasonable? And it looks like a fake tree from Walmart, I'm just saying. Like, that's my perception, so just letting you know. Thought I'd throw that in there. But I think it sticks up far enough that it would look odd, that it's gonna look like the odd man out. So I don't think a disguise is 100% the resolution that we're looking for. I think a relocation, according to the recommendations of New Hampshire of 1,500 feet would be ideal, but even moving it back further would be a reasonable consideration.
Thank you. And I apologize for butchering your last name.
Oh, no, everybody does it, we're not offended.
It's happened my whole life.
Can I just ask before the next person comes up that we cut out the talking in the public? It's getting really hard to sort of filter out what's whispering and talking side conversations and what's actual comment.
Hi, my name is Gary Sakali. I live at 75 Ellison Ave, directly across the street from where this tower would be. I've lived there for 26 years, okay, just to let you know. And that's my neighborhood.
Can we have comments directed, sorry, the comments all have to be directed to the board.
That's fine. That's my neighborhood that's being torn down by the cell tower.
Still directed to the board.
Sorry. Okay.
And mic on the table.
At the end of the day, this cell tower is about where Dave wants it to be put because of the road that he's building. He has plenty of land for this thing to be moved. There's no reason he can't move it somewhere else. Let's get Dave and Verizon together in a meeting and talk to them about where this thing can be moved. Why does it have to be right there? That's the question on the table here for me. There's plenty of room, and there's no reason that it can't be. So I would ask the board here that you ask them to do that and be vigilant about it. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the, yes.
Hi, Richard Cagle, 86 Ellison Avenue. I'm one of the affected abutters for the proposed site. I wanted to thank you all for coming to the site walk and spending a little time with us, taking a look at the impact and where the balloon was going to be located. I wanted to share that after you left, we had a visitor. Mr. Kimball came driving up in his car and chatted with us for a little while. We expressed some of our concerns directly to him, and mine in particular was, you know, if you had that moved back a couple of feet away from my property line, there probably would be a lot less to squawk about. He said, I'm open to that, but it would require renegotiation. So I just wanted to relay that conversation. It was not an unreasonable comment. It was simply, I'm not super opposed to that, but it would require us to renegotiate the contract. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Kevin Bolduck from 60 Ellison Avenue in Hampstead.
You may just have to move the mic a little bit, or speak a little bit louder.
All right. Kevin Bolduck at 60 Ellison Avenue. I'm adjacent to Stephanie and Doug Boulay at 70 Ellison Ave. All of the concerns that have been brought up today, I just want to share in that sentiment. There are other reasonable solutions to go about, and to me, there's no reason why it would have to be right towards the property line as it's proposed. The comment was made that, well, you know, that is what was proposed. Well, yes, but there's other areas that could absolutely be proposed on that piece of land that would meet all of the requirements that were mentioned earlier. So in terms of property value, I share in the same sentiment. I have major concerns. You know, we moved to this property in 2019 because of the rural nature of the lot and the whole area. It is a very nice wooded stretch of land there. You know, the appeal to be able to walk out into our backyard and into the town forest is a real big appeal, and it's not the same when you're going to be walking back there towards a chain link fence with barbed wire and a large looming tower. So property value is a big concern, and again, it can all be mitigated with some renegotiation and several other opportunities to relocate this tower somewhere else. So I just want to thank you for your consideration and consideration of the ordinances and the well-being of Hampstead residents as well in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, or come on up.
My name's Cheryl Kime, and...
Do you mind just, getting a little bit closer? If you're more comfortable standing, that's fine, just a little bit closer to the microphone.
How's that?
No, keep it on the table.
It needs to be on the table? All right. Maybe I'll just speak loudly enough. I hope it's loud enough.
Oh, you're getting a handheld mic.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, we aim to please here at the Kingston.
This is cool. It's like karaoke night. I'm an abutter of Kimball, although my house is not very close. It's across the Beaver Pond from Rosewood and the others. I just had one maybe foolish question. I attended the first meeting about this, and there was somebody just down the road into Plastow that has a property, and he's willing to put the towers on it. I guess he's negotiating for a tower with a different company. Why don't he put 2 towers? Go right down the road, it's not very far from Kimball's property, and they could put the tower up there, and then there's no fuss. It's just something I'd wanted to point out. It's a different idea entirely.
Thank you.
I think Glenn might be able to address that.
Yeah, do you want to speak to that? Because it sort of got covered at the last meeting.
Yeah, as was discussed at the last meeting, they hadn't applied to the Plastow Planning Board before Verizon applied to us. And with due respect to other applications, we can't really bother ourselves with that. That isn't what's before us.
what we have before us is a substantial application that we want to work through. So that's where we stand. So I completely understand Mr. Galloway's feelings about it and his desire to front-end his proposal, but it just simply doesn't work that way.
Any additional comment from the public? Yep, come on up. You have to state your name and address, please. Can you use one of the microphones? That's okay.
Yeah, I just don't like talking about it. So Pam Hoffman, my mother's the owner of the house, Kathleen, and we're on 18 East Main Street, so we're not in a butter, but we live right across from it, up on the hill. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically Doug and his wife pretty much summed up everything, you know, with the health concerns and the aesthetics, like you said. But even if they do move it, whatever happens here, you know, I think we still see it. I think we see it worse than all those other people, because we're like up on a hill, because I'm just laying in bed on my pillow, just the way our house is set, and just, you know, if you saw it, you know, and you can see it. I mean, I'm just laying in bed, and I could see the tower. I saw the balloons, you know, so I'm just saying it's, I don't know, even if they do move it, I think we're still going to see it, you know, but pretty much Doug and his wife pretty much covered everything. They did a good job, but I'm just saying that even though we're not in a butter and stuff, we're right across from Kimball's place. We're on 18 East Main Street, and we can see it. I think we see it worse than everybody, you know, just because we're up on the hill. You can see it everywhere. I think he mentioned out of our dining room tape, you know, the dining room, right in our driveway, it's there, you know. So I guess that's all I have to say, really, you know. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to give public comment? No? Okay, we will close public comment at 8:07 p.m. And I guess any further comment or question from the board before we invite the applicant back up to, if there's anything you want to add to the public comment? No? Go ahead.
I'm not sure what I need to add to the public comment. I think this is my first planning board meeting. It's like baptism by fire, but I'm familiar with land use. And the one thing I haven't heard tonight is consideration for the town of Kingston, because we have to follow our regulations and make decisions based on the regulations. We can have conditions, we can make suggestions to the applicant to perhaps approach the landowner to see if we can find a more amenable location that's mutually agreeable. But if the Kingston Planning Board doesn't follow its own regulations, it opens itself up to risk for suits from people that are not happy with any decision. So we have to follow by the rules. I think it's wonderful that so many of our neighbors in Hampshire came out to say that they don't want it there. But the bottom line is there may be another alternative, and I think that needs to be explored before any decision is made here.
Any further comment or rebuttal from the applicant based on what's been shared?
No rebuttal, just wanted to ask for clarification on what would make the board's life easier as far as providing more information for the next hearing. I know you want the plans and specs of the generator and information on the orientation of the exhaust. And I have...
And I think, just to help you out on what else would be useful, I think that the camouflage aspect has changed a lot since the early 90s, when they really didn't look like trees. And perhaps if you can provide some kind of photograph or representation of what a good camouflage, what the current state of art camouflage would be, it might go a long way towards the aesthetics argument. I really think that would help, especially because I have no idea currently probably because there may be some that I haven't seen because the camouflage is so good. Who knows?
I think it would also be helpful to know definitively if that's the only location on the property that the landowner would entertain.
I would just like to know by the next meeting whether or not you did have a conversation with the landowner. I mean, this is the second hearing. The concerns were raised at the first hearing about moving it, and to have you come here today and say that you haven't even had the conversation with him is a bit concerning to me, okay? The other...
If I interject, it's that I'm not the site control guy. So Chip, the gentleman that came previously, who couldn't come because of the family issues, is the one that had that conversation. So it isn't as though we haven't had that conversation, just I'm not the person that has. So I'm happy to provide more insight on that by next hearing.
Okay, and now, just your reiteration of this is the only spot in the spot that you were given. I noticed in Glenn's comments, the third-party RF evaluation. I would like to see that as well, only because when you came, you said this is the only spot we can put this at the last meeting. And I would mind seeing a third party telling us that as well.
Is that something they would do? Because they wouldn't be the third party. We'd have to.
My comment was whether or not the board wanted to hire a third-party reviewer to review their information. But I say that in, it's perfect. It's a perfectly legitimate thing to do, and I've done it with probably 3/4 of the cell tower applications I've looked at in 27 years, because I went 5 years before I saw my first one. I gotta tell you, the science is pretty straightforward. So I haven't seen third-party reviews that actually discounted by anything really measurable between what an applicant has brought in. But it's absolutely something we can do. If we're gonna do that, we need to step on getting someone to do that. That's a decision that the board needs to act on.
And the other thing is, to have you sit there and say, health concerns are not a factor. In our decision, they are not. But this is the second time you've said this, that they aren't to you as well. And that bothers me. I just want to put that out there. That bothers me, okay? You're 500 feet from a guy's house, okay? There is no way I would let you put this 500 feet from my house. And I don't care what kind of studies you're recommending, because I'll give you 500 that say the exact opposite. It's 1,500 feet. It's there, you can do it. You need to have the conversation with the landowner, I guess, and all this goes away, and I just don't understand. It's our only spot. I mean, health concerns to these people who live there. And it's not a factor, and I get it, it's not a factor to us, but I'm concerned it's not a factor to you. It bothers me. Just needed to say that out loud. It bothers me.
Keith, there's sign up here.
No, I just need to say it out loud. I mean, I'm horrified, absolutely horrified.
So I guess as far as the pleasure of the board at this juncture, there's a conditional use permit on the table. Is the desire of the applicant that we proceed with the conditional use permit, or is there?
I don't.
Is there more?
I'll just, before you ask them, I would suggest that if there's any chance they can come back with a different plan, we would have to redo the conditional use permit. And so I think we should have a final plan if they're going to grant a continuation for this to get more information. I mean, they don't have to do it this time, but if we're going to send them back for more information, then we probably ought to wait.
Correct.
Do we have that before we start evaluating? Because as Glenn said, and I opened to that page, there is the proximity question, and that could change. Coverage and foliage, that would change if you had to move it away from the property line, and you could therefore leave those trees, which would be the best physical barrier, visual barrier, sorry, to the tower. Because all those nice tall trees that are there, that are within the 50 feet, would be farther away from the property line than the 50 feet would get cut down, and you'd lose some of that screening that's in the pictures. So,
I actually think that the applicant needs to speak with the landowner and get that resolved.
yeah,
one way or the other before-
yeah, I think we're wasting our time doing a CUP until we have the final.
If, let's say you were able to move it to a different location on the property.
Oh, Ellie, your microphone, sorry.
I'm sorry. If you're able to work on an alternative site on the property that's conducive both for Verizon's needs and for the landowners, then a lot of these other issues may be muted and not and easily resolved in an amicable way. And I think we want to try to do that first. If the spot you're on now is the only opportunity to put the tower, then we can go forward from there. That's the only location, and then everything else follows accordingly. Does that make sense?
Yes, the board's pleasure whether they want to vote tonight or request new information. It sounds like you want to request more information, which I'm happy to provide for the next hearing. What I would like to know is if you're going to do a peer review or not. My theory on that is the folks that do the peer reviews don't have all the equipment that this guy has, so it's less accurate ultimately. But it's up to you whether or not you want to do that. But I would suggest that because you do the shot clock, that you would need to get going on that, because it takes some time for those folks to get going, you know.
Is that something?
Yeah,
you would need a motion for?
personally, I would defer to the planner's experience on this. He's done a lot more than anybody else in this room, and if he doesn't think that's worth the time and expense or whatever, that it's not going to produce anything other than what we've seen on those charts that you've produced. I don't think it's. I would take his advice.
So much information is gathered in making their initial report for where the coverages lie, that to have somebody replicate it for the purposes of making sure it's okay, that has not been something that I've seen happen.
The other thing, disseminating information to Hampstead, we're gonna be doing that? They're gonna be doing that?
I did respond to the Board of Selectmen when they did the inquiry to let them know that we post everything that we receive electronically on our website so that they can simply go to our website and see all the information that we've received. And so in this case, for instance, it did include having posted this photographic simulations that were developed as well as the new site review. Both were posted last week.
Since the zoning with the state RSA, Peter mentioned, falls into our purview, do you have any intention of speaking to Hampstead at all?
I'm happy to speak with anyone, but it's not required to get the permit that we need to construct. So I don't know what purpose that would serve, you know. I've responded in writing to the Hampstead Select Board's concerns in my supplemental application. So
to Hampstead's?
Yes.
Do we have that?
Yeah, I
Yeah, it's the
submitted it to Glenn
same thing
last
we
week.
received. Yeah.
And I wanted to mention, if you didn't get a chance to look through that application, because I did attach some additional photos and some surveys and appraisals in connection with the diminution of value of property that hopefully will be helpful in your review with a different perspective. I also reiterated that the health effects. Again, it isn't me saying you can't consider it. It's federal law, right? So it isn't me saying it. It's the federal law, right?
That was you saying it to us that it's not a factor. Is how it came across to me. Just to make that clear. And And I get it, our decision's not a factor, but again, I'm just horrified that it's not a factor to you both. And didn't have a conversation with them about it, like, how do you feel about this being close? It just bugs me, I'm sorry, it just bugs me. I mean, because me, that would be the first factor. If I was in a butter, I was close, and, you know, and again, we're 1,500 feet, and everybody's.
But Rob, they submitted in their package, information that shows what the health impacts are, and the science is really clear. Rob, it is really clear that if you're right up next to that antenna, there is a health concern. That's why they don't even let their employees stay up there next to those antennas for very long. Because there's an exponential drop off between the height and the distance. And I hear this argument, I've heard this argument at probably 30 applications for cell towers in the last 25 years. And there isn't a health conspiracy going on.
I know it's not a conspiracy, but there is technology that has changed, okay? And as far as, it's not conspiracy I'm concerned with. I mean, you see people die of things, and then you ask why. And then technology has changed, and magically they are not dying from it, okay? And then you have technology that existed 25 years ago. But now you have technology that exists now at a different gigahertz, at a different power, at a different everything. And that is unknown. You can't tell me that these towers they put up with these 5G antennas, as of right now, has had those same studies of time. And when you look at with the property values, well, I looked at those. We're not in Montana. We're not in Minnesota. We're not in Arizona. We're in New Hampshire. Okay? And
The survey has a lot of towns from New Hampshire as well. So.
You know, to me, it's just, as far as health-wise goes, and again, it's not our decision, but to me, it bothers me, and I just had to say that out loud. It bugs me a lot. And I'm sure it bugs some of them. I just wish it bugged you.
But I'd have to say that horse has already left the barn.
Yep.
All of us live and die by this.
Some sleep with them.
Imagine that. But we are tied to this technology. It's not going away. And we don't want it to. Yes,
Robin, I have one more comment.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Just a technical thing, one of my comments was about a survey plan, because I would assume that this would have to be recorded in the Registry of Deeds, so it would have to have a boundary survey plan. I saw on the resubmittal that there was a surveyor's stamp on the plan, but it wasn't, there was a note that says it wasn't a boundary survey. So I don't know how that would comply with the Registry of Deeds or not, and maybe that should be checked out before next meeting, so we know for sure that that process can get done properly.
We're happy to do whatever it takes to get it reported, whether it's a condition to final approval or we want something the next time. But again, these are all just proposals, right? So we're not trying to provide you with something that's in recordable form. So we'll do whatever it takes to the extent you want.
What we've done in the past is a lot of us who bring plans in go to the registry first and make sure that whatever plans that need to be recorded would meet their requirements. I hear you, but at the same token, I would hate to have them go to the Registry of Deeds and have them turned away. So whatever the town would like to see, whatever the planning board would like to see.
We require a survey plan that's recordable at the registry.
Okay, that's all I wanted to bring up.
And while we're still saying what you can do, between now and then, and I don't know if they can come back with an answer for you. And that was the Conservation Commission's remarks about whether plantings and spotted turtles had been found in that area that may affect the project. I can't speculate, but the recommendations from the Conservation Commission should be you should be able to go to New Hampshire Fish and Game and Non-Game and get some answers about wildlife habitat corridors and things. It's
Sorry to interrupt.
yeah. I think that she said that it was sandy soil and south facing, which were kind of key.
Prime turtle nesting grounds.
Prime, yeah. There you go.
Glenn, I'm not sure I got those comments. If they were written, would you mind shooting those along to me? I'm happy to respond to that.
Here we are.
Peter's got it.
I've got an extra copy.
Thank you. So if I just recap what you all would be helpful, plans and specs of the generator, orientation of the exhaust of the generator, photographs of the current edition of the camouflage poles, response to the Conservation Commission comments in connection with the potential for turtle habitat, and more definitive answers on the conversations with Mr. Kimball about more definitive responses from Mr. Kimball on whether or not the site can be pushed away. I guess my question there is, if that's a possibility, what do you want to see? Like how far away? And how would that jeopardize the view from other properties, you know? So is it just that you want it 140 feet away from the property line? Or do you want something else?
I think that's a legitimate question.
That is a legitimate question.
It is. I think that the 140 would put you, if you just moved it another 100 feet in, it would put you right in the middle of this road. My impression was that that road was a considerable factor. We were talking about putting it over on the other side of the road, slightly higher, and closer to the areas that are not inhabited. If you look at the, make sure I get the orientation correct on this, where the north step is. There it is, 50 kilowatt unit. There's one nice color photo.
I'm not trying to get you to pinpoint me down on what would be acceptable. I'm just trying to get like the threshold of like what is
We're
it your
talking
primary concern? Is it the fall zone going over the line, or is it some other concern primarily?
There are multiple concerns. The fall zone is one of them, and we beat that one already. The other is the aesthetics. Putting it that close to residential property line it's hard to mask that. If you put it in the trees, obviously you'd have to clear some trees out. Okay, so that one doesn't have nice pictures. If you go to, is north up on this? Z2. If you go over to the east, you'll see there's a forested area there, and then there you can see the plastic line. So you'd still be well outside. You know, maybe you could still be a couple hundred feet from the plastic line. Concerned with the fall zone, wouldn't have houses anywhere near it. It would be much easier to mask it because you had trees in that area. You wouldn't have to run the communications and power lines up and over a road that is there, which, quite frankly, was surprising because Chris was out there and he was asked the question from one of the abutters about the power lines being buried. And he said, yeah, they're buried all the way up to the platform. The abutter looked at plans and showed him where, in fact, on the plans.
Can we stop the conversation in the gallery, please?
Actually showed him on the plans where the lines came out of the ground, went up a pole, across the road, and down again to on the other side. So that, in fact, the lines weren't buried. And that's why the whole discussion about how that created some risks for you and having overhead lines and for him and the equipment and everything else and aesthetically. Plus, if you're talking about making a new road going in there, having a couple of telephone poles sticking in the ground would certainly restrict his ability to widen the road or move it or anything else. If you ran a line in from the driveway in along that, parallel to that property, past out town line, you wouldn't have any of those issues. You could stay underground right up to the unit. And so that's something that your engineers, your design folks could look at as far as moving it away from the wall. I would say, at least 700 or 800 feet. Well, I don't know. What's the radius of that circle? That's the fall zone's about 500 feet. Yeah, so 500 feet would probably do significant improvement. But you can look at the terrain maps and the and everything else, and it. Yeah. So that's it's up to you to probably negotiate with him, ask what his restrictions are, what he wants to use that land for over there, other than just sticking this thing over on next to the residential side, saying that's not really flying too well. Can we put it over on the forested side?
Did that answer your question? Okay. All right, so I'm hearing that we would probably entertain a motion to continue this to the next hearing on April 13th. Is it the 13th? 16th.
I'll second. This is Peter. I'll second it.
Motion by Ellie, second by Peter Coffin. All those in favor?
The motion is to April 16th at 6:45.
At 6:45.
6:40, and then
due.
Yeah, with
You
plans
have your
due.
planner out, I know.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I've got it. Find it. February.
They would be due is it the 11th? The Thursday before?
Okay, April 16th, and Glenn or Robin, help us out here. What's the date you need the plans in by? Is it 10 days prior?
We've typically said 10 days prior.
10 days prior, so the 9th, the Friday the 5th at noon, we used to use Thursday, right?
So
Okay.
plans due April 4th
By noon.
by noon.
Before? By noon?
Is that when the planning
That's
office
when,
closes?
That's because I leave at 1 o'clock
Oh,
on
okay.
Thursdays, part-time, so we try to accommodate that.
So really, it's gonna be April 3rd, if that extra plan is in. So is that what you want? Yeah.
By noon on the board.
All right, so there's a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passed unanimously. So there will be no further notice. This is the notice of the next public hearing, which will be on April 16th at 6:45. Yes. Any new plans will be posted beforehand. While folks are clearing out, do we want to tackle the request for continuation? we need a motion on that, correct? All right. So there is a request to continue the proposal of Hawks Ridge of South Kingston LLC, Mulligan Way and Bentgrass Circle, map R3, lot 4, LU 4020. And this was a reapplication for limited common area adjustment and amended site plan. The request is to continue to April 16th. Is there a motion?
Before we do a motion, Glenn had indicated that we should discuss this, the reasons why. Was that, you in your comments, you said this should be discussed. Was there a particular reason why you had made that usually? Or do you know the reason why it was?
The board should consider and take a vote on the request for continuation.
Okay, so there wasn't anything when you said consider.
But you should have a motion on the floor anyways.
Okay. Well, I would want to know which way to make the motion, because if he had advice that we'd already continued this a number of times.
No, there was no consideration.
Okay, all right, I'll move that we continue this to April 16th at 6:45, is what we use for all of them.
Motion by Peter Coffin. Is there a second? Second by Ellie Alessio.
And that, of course, was the same stipulation that the plan, any changed plans would be in by the noon on the 3rd.
The 4th.
4th, okay, the noon on the 4th, okay, thank you.
He threw you because he was going to FedEx them, so he's going to do it.
Oh, that was what his 3rd was, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
And that, presumably they have documentation that they're the ownership. This is the only reason this came up.
Presumably, we really can't talk about it, but yes,
Okay.
that is the issue.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't know that was the issue, sorry. Okay, never mind.
All right, next up, we are considering, it looks like Gerard Welsh, MHOC LLC, property owner, Collington Real Estate Trust at 57 Depot Road, map R28, lot 1. This is yeah. Oh. I will carry on then. This is a design review application for a proposed conversion of an existing golf course to an age-restricted condominium development. Glenn, we're done doing whatever it is you're doing. Would you like to?
I would like to.
Yeah. Is there something I can help you with?
I thought perhaps an extension cord for our friends here, but, oh, you don't need it?
Well, I've only got about 8 minutes on this thing.
Oh, damn.
I could literally sit at the stage and charge it.
Yeah,
and
sure.
talk through one of the microphones, if that works for you.
They're portable, probably for this reason.
Yes. Oh, Glenn, look at you go.
All right, Glenn,
Much appreciated.
you're up.
All right. So my comments are, first, did you have the discussion, this is design review?
Yes, it's a design review application for a proposed conversion of an existing golf course to an age-restricted condominium development.
Perfect. And so as a design review, abutters did get notified, but the discussion tonight is non-binding between either the applicant or the planning board. So all questions are on the table, no decisions will be made. So I have as comments that the plan is for market rate age restricted units, but the property is not zoned for this use, and ZBA relief would be required. The density calculations for the plan are wrong since age restricted housing is not allowed. The density is split between 2 acre per unit and 3 acre per unit densities due to the presence of the Aquifer Protection District. If we go just on the premise that this is going to be standard zoning, then the numbers, the dwelling unit numbers that show on this plan are much higher than they would be under conventional zoning. The development is split by the town boundary between Kingston and East Kingston, and the board would have to make a call as to whether this is a project of regional impact. And a hydrologic study would need to be developed because of the presence of the Aquifer Protection Zone. And those are my comments.
I've got a quick question on the comments, and that is, you said the project's divided between the two towns, East Kingston and Kingston. The plans we got, unless I misread where the town line was, showed the entire 9-hole golf course and the project as being in Kingston. Is there another part of the project that is going to East Kingston?
May I address that?
Sure.
Madam Chair? Christian Smith, engineer with Beals Associates here, representing the applicant, who is sitting next to me, Gerard Welch, on the project. Mr. Coffin, in answer to your question, all of the homes are proposed sited in the town of Kingston. What is actually in the town of East Kingston, so it is the clubhouse and a par 3 relocated, kind of reconfigured 9-hole course, for the residents. I don't know, Jerry, your thoughts?
Public and residents.
Public and residents. So that's the proposal. But yes, all of the residential units are proposed under this concept in the town of Kingston.
Okay, the reason I'm asking, other than the whole regional impact thing, which obviously we'd take up after an application would come in, but usually when we've had projects before that encompassed 2 towns, if it's all part of the same project, we've done joint meetings of the 2 planning boards to hear it, so you don't have to repeat. But if you're dividing this project at the town line, I don't know where I'm going with this, Glenn, but is there...
When we get to formal application, if we're successful with the Zoning Board of Adjustment, I think that's a fantastic idea. We're not technically changing the use in the town of East Kingston. There are golf holes there now, and that's what's going to propose to be there. But I think that's a great opportunity to have common meetings if the town of Kingston and the town of East Kingston are willing to accommodate that. Is that better?
Yeah.
I think I'm connected to that.
I thought Adam was doing something with the remote.
He's making signs back there.
Can you decipher them?
Yeah, I thought he was trying to get the projector going.
Okay.
It was going.
Sorry.
It was, and then it wasn't.
Little blue lights flashing.
I appear to be connected on my laptop to the Epson.
Did it just go to sleep?
So that's a good start.
And if this had been a formal application, then it would have been proposed that it be joint, but this is a non-binding discussion.
Right, okay.
And I think the overriding issue is what development scheme are we gonna work on here? And I think that's probably what the discussion you wanna have.
Precisely.
So what they really wanna talk to the board about, it's the things that are in Kingston.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we get to the proposal, I'll read, the design. I'll read department comments. So we have comments from the fire department. And those comments are that homes comply with NFPA for 1 or 2 family dwellings, that the clubhouse comply with NFPA for assembly occupancy, clubhouse to have a Knox box install, clubhouse to install NFPA 7.2 fire alarm, site comply with Town of Kingston Ordinance, Article, looks like 1008, fire protection regulation, and in parentheses, cistern. Site comply with all subdivision regulations and comply with any pertinent codes or ordinance not listed above. And that is signed Brian L. Bland, 3/12/24. Comments from the Kingston Conservation Commission dated 3/14/24. These are preliminary comments as this is a conceptual plan. This site abuts Kingston's Route 107 Town Forest, which comprises 10 acres of high-value wetland with only 2.5 acres of upland. Nearly the entire property falls within Connect the Coast Nature Conservancy, I can never say this word, Conservancy, prioritized habitat for wildlife corridors, and abuts Rockingham Planning Commission's Wildlife Action Plan for Kingston's highest valued habitat. We will be very aware of that as future plans come before us. And then it references maps below. If the planning board approves the conceptual plan, the Conservation Commission will monitor closely to ensure that all wetlands are protected and that buffer values are correctly calculated according to Kingston's point system. In order for wetlands and their buffers to fulfill their utility to wildlife, a percentage of upland must also be preserved as natural state as possible. Many of the homes on the conceptual plan fall too closely to wetland boundaries to allow for sufficient buffer if the homes are to have backyards. We're assuming that a regional impact study will be done, as East Kingston will want to weigh in on this proposal. And then, Dennis, did you have any comments?
I don't have any written comments because this really isn't an engineered plan, but a couple of quick comments is that I think the wetlands need to be accurately located, number one. They have to comply with the wetland setback as mentioned by the Conservation Commission. Stormwater management has to be addressed. Waste disposal systems have to be designed or at least shown where they'll go. And also traffic impact DOT approval for something like this to go in would also be required. So just my brief review of this, but I didn't make any written comments, but that's certainly something I know you're going to address as you always do in all of your projects, Christian. So that's all I have for now.
So it looks like we are without a projector.
We're without projector.
But if you'd like to
Okay, well.
describe what it is that,
Yes.
that we would be looking at.
Yeah, and I mean, my shoulder if they'd like to see it. So anyway, we do have an existing conditions survey that was done by Laval, and Dennis visited. We're well aware of that. You know, and basically we took a look at this thing, and you know, Jerry's desire was, this makes a lot of sense for an age-restricted development. He went through and took a peek at Three Ponds, which is a similar sort of configuration and development over in the town of Brentwood. Liked what he saw there, and so what we've done is kind of utilize that model into this property, knowing full well right up front, and that's why we're here before you preliminarily, that this is not allowed by the zoning on this particular property. So that, you know, that's going to be up to Jerry if he gets the idea that you folks kind of agree with us that this probably would be something, an interesting venture. You know, take it to the zoning board, and I think we've got two opportunities. We either try to do a use variance to allow this in the zone that it's in, or to, you know, wait for a rezoning vote, which wouldn't be until a year from now. I would believe you guys already had your town meeting. Yeah, exactly. So those are the two alternatives to allow this to happen. And really, we're just here to see if you guys had any general input, if you agree with us that this is a good idea, you know, that it kind of makes sense to go hard at the zoning board, probably sooner than later. But we also, well, not we, I'm not paying for him. Jerry has engaged Mark Fougere, who is a regional planner, and he had done development fiscal impact review of a property in the, now albeit in the town of Greenland, but I assume the ratios are going to be fairly similar. And obviously, this has nothing to do with gerrymaking money. This has to do with the fiscal impact on the town of Kingston. And I believe, if I remember correctly, what the property would have facilitated was 71 single-family conventional homes or 168 single-family detached condominiums in the age-restricted development. Obviously, those are all required to be 2-bedroom, no more, in the age-restricted, and the conventional was a mix of 3 and 4 bedrooms. When he went through all of the impacts on the municipality, what he found is that on an annual basis, essentially that conventional subdivision that was nearly 100 units less than the age-restricted was at about a $500,000 deficit to the town. So in other words, it was costing the municipality from their services. And with the age-restricted, it was literally at 1.42 million. Now, Jerry's having that work done specific to this property as well, so we'll have better numbers. We'll have Kingston, you know, school costs and all taxes and all of that. But it seems like a huge win for the municipality. And, you know, I certainly think that this type of housing is still needed in Rockingham County, because every one of these that we've ever gotten approved, the developer literally can't build the houses fast enough. That's how quickly they sell. So, I mean, we've got an aging population, and bear in mind, this is, you know, 55 plus. This is not convalescent care. This is active seniors, you know, in large part. Well, I say that. My in-laws actually purchased one of the first houses in in Three Ponds, and they're 85 and 86. But so it is a true mix of folks that buy these homes. And anyway, that's kind of what we're here to present to you, and I wish you could all see it on the big screen, but we'd just like to, yeah, so does Adam. So we'll just, we'd like to get some input from you guys. And
just before we go to the input, Adam, it looked like the bulb might be on. Do you want to go to settings and then display and then duplicate display and see if you can get it up that way?
Says I'm connected.
No, I'm not connected, but if you go to your settings.
Yeah. Yeah, if you know how to do it, Peter, you help me out. Is it change projection mode, maybe?
Where's your?
Just says a pad.
Okay, so you go over here.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. And then go to settings. Yeah, whoops.
Settings is right down here.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let the IT guy. There you go.
I was going to say that, but I just want to make sure that we're not. What am I? Are we mirroring? Oh, 200%. No. Okay, no, I've just made it worse. My deepest apologies. No. Not that bad.
I pay an IT guy. He can put that shit back together in an hour.
So it is mirror. It's supposed to be mirroring. Why?
Really how I anticipated this going.
No.
I do apologize for that.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aha! No, that's the wrong computer. I was trying to look up how to reboot the thing.
That's what happened. That's what happened Monday night. Last night was the Ernie couldn't log in until the other guy logged off or something. It was.
I do apologize to everyone.
Fixed.
I haven't had this particular issue.
What do we see?
It doesn't like your computer, I'm afraid. Is it just the
Well,
one
that's
image,
rude.
or do you have multiple images?
Well, no, I just have the one open now, but I do have other PDFs that I can switch to. Do you want me to try another one?
No, I was just going to take it in because I have a hard wire that's clearly working, so I was just going to.
Oh, I see.
But if you need to be changing through things.
Well, it's literally just this plan and then some two photo sheets.
You want me to just run it in? I can.
Yeah, do you have a stick?
Yeah, I have a stick.
Stick drive would be easy enough. Do you have a place to plug it in there?
I do. I have many places to plug it.
You're a good man.
Sorry, everyone.
This is like this.
Okay.
Thank you.
So are we anticipating he's gonna get it up in there and you'll talk to it from here? And
That's
so
the-
Vanna
yes.
is back in the room?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Yeah, I mean, are there other questions from the board or comments from the board? You just thought we could keep going with questions?
Hey, look at that. Oh, and I did want to mention, I did read through Glenn's comments, and indeed, he's correct. I mean, what we used for our density calculations were based on the actual age-restricted housing zoning in Kingston, just doesn't apply to this particular property. So with all of that will have to be dealt with at the zoning board of adjustment. I don't. You? Yeah. Slide it over. I was going to use my mouse. That's what I thought.
But instead we took your
Thank you,
laptop.
This on,
Yeah.
and then hit that one right there.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. So in any event, as that turns out, based on upland just in the town of Kingston, would facilitate at the 2 units per acre. I think it was 96 units, and what we've got proposed here is 64. And again, you know, this is the actual town line, that dark dash line right there. So this is the clubhouse, which also has a pool amenity, pickleball courts. I believe we've even got some horseshoe pits out there, something like that. And again, you know, the semi-private golf, just a par 3, 9-hole golf course that would lead back to the clubhouse. And really, that's the proposal. And is it Adam? Is that the gentleman's name?
Yes.
If you could just pick off either one of the photo, or you want me to come in and do it? Yes, photo page, exactly. Photo plan. It's a PDF.
By semi-private, you mean it's open only to the residents?
No, it would be open to the,
Semi-private. Residents,
that's perfect.
open to the public too.
Like an executive 9, basically?
Yeah, but it's a par 3. Yeah. So, okay, this is actually 3 Ponds in Brentwood. And what I wanted to show you in particular is, this is the clubhouse. You can barely see the pickleball court here. This is the mail kiosk, obviously the parking, which you can see kind of facing it now. But really, kind of the beauty of the way this lays out is that building just kind of fits in with the rest of the architecture. It doesn't look like it's a specific to a recreation amenity. It just looks like another one of the houses if you're driving past it. Could you open the next one? The same, the photo 2 or whatever it's called? Thank you. It's kind of fun. Yep, right there at the bottom one, bottom folder. Yeah, no sweat. Okay. And again, this is just a view of one of the ponds, or actually both of the ponds, and then kind of how some of those homes lay in. And again, this is the clubhouse right back here. So it's very difficult to discern from any of the other buildings that are on the property. And we think that's one of the beauty shots of it. What you see in the picture over on the right is a actual walking trail that goes throughout the entire project, and the landscape architect actually designed in little stations where these folks can stop and work out. I mean, there's little areas where you can do chin-ups, there's areas where you can do inclined presses, stuff like that. So it's kind of cool, but it's kind of all in one living, and that's what we have to offer you. With any luck.
Just to clarify, there are not any ponds proposed. I'm not.
No, these were existing ponds at that campground before it was developed. It just happens to be there, and it's really hard to take a picture out there with not getting one of them in it.
I don't even see a water trap.
Yeah, well, I would find it with my ball, that's for sure.
Any other questions from the board? Otherwise, we'll move to public comment. No? Seeing none, we'll ask that anyone who wishes to ask questions, again, please direct them at the board. Use the microphone, just press until the green light is on. We will open for public comment at 9:01.
I'm curious, my name's Kenneth Cabral.
Can you just turn the mic on? Sorry, press until it's green. There you go.
Kenneth Cabral, I own 18 Powwow River Road and 26 Powwow River Road. And quite a bit of the property borders the backside of this development. Tax map IDs on it, so I'm a little confused. It's kind of a rough drawing. I don't see any of the power lines coming through with the easements on that. It's rough. The question I have, is there a better plan on file with all the abutters and what have you?
No, because this is design review.
Yeah.
They can bring any exhibit that they want to bring.
Right.
And as we've discussed, this doesn't even comply with our zoning. It's that preliminary discussion.
Okay. I know the wetland area they spoke about is, part of it is behind my property with the conservation. So it's just confusing looking at this here and trying to make means of it the way it's drawn.
Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong. Our purpose here is to review what the applicant wants to do on that property. They still have to go to the zoning board for relief because it does not comply, that section of zoning in Kingston does not comply with what they want to use the property for. So they'd have to go to the zoning board, assuming we like the idea, they would go to the zoning board, get a variance to put a age-restricted development in that area. In which case, they'd have to develop the plans that would address Mr. Cabral's concerns about where the wetlands are, where the power lines are, where the different lot lines are. Is that correct?
Yep.
So,
Right, it was
so this is just what they'd like to do, so it's not gonna have the detail you're asking for at this point.
All right, and at some point, when and if it comes up for proposal, it'll be more in detail.
Absolutely.
Correct.
That's all I was concerned with, thank you.
Any further comment from the public? Oh, thank you. Yes, Robin is reminding me that you would also be noticed again prior to any formal proposal.
Josh Mills, 139 Depot Road, East Kingston. I just have a point of clarification on the semi-private. I'm not familiar with golf course terminology. Is that semi-private meaning that there's residents that live there that will be using it as well as the public? That's why it wouldn't be a full public like Kingston Fairways used to be? But
That's what I'm understanding.
that part is correct. And then this may not be an appropriate question, but you folks may know. So the applicant is Gerald Walsh, MHOC LLC, but the property owner is Coltrane Real Estate Trust. I assume the purpose of this is to see if the land is developable and then a sale may happen, or is that, I'm confused as to that process, or is it very much like the Verizon tower where it's going to be leased. How is that process handled?
So I don't know the answer to that, but yeah, go ahead.
The applicant has the property under purchase and sale.
Contingent upon approvals. Okay, thank you.
Any further question or comment from the public?
Laurie Farmer. My daughter and son-in-law and grandkids are in that lot right on the corner. You can see the little house.
Do you mind?
It's 28 Powwow River. Oh. Ooh. My glasses. Is that the star? There it was.
You're not helping, Laurie.
I'm gonna forget what I was gonna ask. All right, so. Oh, I pushed it and then I let it go, right there. Okay? So I think a lot of it is kind of what I actually thought would probably happen with the property. Over 55 development, that's not bad. You said 64 units?
That's what we're showing.
And that can, depending on what the zoning board, go ahead.
Get back up to the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is again, what we use for density calculation was the old Kingston age-restricted housing formula. What we may get handed from the Zoning Board of Adjustment, I don't have a clue. It may be closer to what Glenn was discussing in his comments. In other words, you take your conventional density and have fun. We don't know, you know, that, and again, that's why we're here. We just
So a
used what the.
ballpark, just for,
64, I mean, I think the entire property has about 70 acres of upland, 72, I think. So, I mean, it all depends on what acreage is under the aquifer protection zone, what acreage is not, because the aquifer protection zone area would require 3 acres per lot, and the area that's out would require 2. You know, and if the zoning board just granted us here's the ordinance, go ahead and apply it to this property, then it would probably look a lot like this.
okay. So this back part of the property, you have no intention right now of developing?
No.
Because this was, you know, this is still.
Yep, no, what we propose there are basically 2 water wells and nothing else.
Okay,
A lot of that, all what you see in kind of the drab olive color is wetland. So that really isn't touchable anyway.
okay. I kind of feel like it would, visually, just from walking back there, that you're gonna find that back corner where you get that other street coming with the house, is pretty wet back there too. So, but you are planning on developing more the front of the property, and then keeping these, and you said the residents plus the town will all have access to the clubhouse in the.
That's the current plan, yep.
That's the current plan, okay. And these are all single families?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that was pretty much it. I wanted clarification on what this was gonna look like back here. So would it just grow up, or would you keep it trimmed, or like?
I think the only thing that would be maintained back there would be obviously the golf holes.
Right.
And then access to the water wells.
Okay.
And you can see kind of some lighter green areas just off behind the buildings.
Right.
Those were areas that we have kind of targeted for stormwater treatment, so obviously those would have to be maintained. Yeah, but anything else is just going to be
just
to go natural.
To go natural. Okay. All right. And Now, obviously, the aquifer, like as far as, I mean, has he developed in a town where you didn't have town water and you have to do the wells and the impact that that's going to be on the area?
I don't know the answer to that, but we certainly have engineered in those places constantly, so, yeah,
Okay.
we know what has to be done.
And the fact that it was maybe for people moving into one of the houses, the fact that it was a golf course and probably had very treated surfaces with chemicals, could that potentially, does that go through any kind of process?
Well, the drinking water
with you
will have to
guys?
be tested.
Right.
You know, I mean, those drinking water wells obviously will have to be tested, and those will have to be registered and permitted through the Groundwater and Drinking Water Bureau at DES.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a litany of testing.
Right.
With DES knowing this was a golf course, I can guarantee you they're gonna be all over it.
Okay.
And if treatment has to be done as part of the pump station, then that's how it will go.
Okay. All right. I think that's, Morgan, do you have any question while I'm up here? Okay. She's one that actually lives in that house. So, but no, I think it sounds interesting. So, we'll be monitoring it. Thank you.
Thanks. I think there was somebody else headed up as well for comment.
Tom Soterakopoulos. I live at 34 Powwow River Road. I am in a butter. If I'm not mistaken, this is a proposal to get approvals for change of use on the property. Is that correct? I mean, I know they got to go to the ZBA, but they're looking for something from you guys to say that they can go forward, or is that not correct? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're looking for feedback from us, which, in a non-binding discussion, is all that we can do.
Okay.
And I would assume we'll have some discussion, because there's a couple of things I want to say, but
Yeah.
we'll do that at an appropriate time.
Well, I know that in the next 2 to 3 years with all these proposed apartments and big complexes off of Depot Road and the old high school and whatnot, and I'm all for 55 and over that's going to have less impact on the town and be a little quieter, so especially being in a butter. I think it would be better than having single-family homes spread out and having a larger impact. So that's just my thoughts, that I'd like to see something like this. And they brought up 3 ponds, and if that's what they're emulating, I'm the electrical inspector in Brentwood, and 3 Ponds is a very nice neighborhood, and it's quiet and well put together and maintained. So that's all. Just a little. I'm all for it. So.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yeah, quick comment.
This is on.
It's on. Hit the green light.
Lisa Bouchard. I live at 26 Powwow River Road, and I'm all for this also. With a housing shortage, I think this is fantastic. I've got 3 kids looking for homes, and this would, I mean, they're not going to be able to move here, but just as, you know, the real estate, we need more homes for sale, so I wish you well.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment at 9:14. Glenn, you've got comments.
I mean, my comment is that the town has, over the years, developed those areas that they felt they wanted to have age-restricted housing, and it was generally the premise that underwrote it was to locate it up around town services. That's why the ones that you see are near this sort of the center area of town. And so this would not be there at all. And so from my perspective, my preference would be, if that is the desire of the town, that we do it through actually doing a zoning amendment, as opposed to the zoning board somehow trying to rationalize a variance for hardship when they can develop completely legitimately as single families. So how do you show a variance hardship there? So it just seems to me that this discussion should center more on if this is desired by the town, and if we want more age-restricted housing, we should amend the zoning ordinance the proper way instead of sending them down the path of varying our zoning ordinance to the ZBA.
Any thoughts on that from the board?
Sure. I think it's a terrific idea, but don't think it doesn't have any impact on town services, because age-restricted housing generates a lot of ambulance calls. And they're not necessarily dying, we need to apply that, but something as simple as lift assist and so forth. I know when All-American went in, they thought they might have 50 calls a year. For ambulance services, it's more like 50 calls a month. So it has an impact. It's not that far off the center of town. It's down around the corner a little bit, but not too bad. But I don't see, I mean, I have no objections to it personally. I think it has, the golf course has a nice touch to it. That's different. That's different than a lot of other 55 pluses. And as long as it doesn't look like the Stepford Wives, works for me. The perceived hesitation around going the zoning, changing the zoning ordinance would be time, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
The time it would take to do that?
We just came off town meeting, which means a zoning ordinance amendment isn't gonna even be voted on until the second Tuesday next March.
Could that be the perceived hardship? No. Just throwing it out there. Okay.
I like the way you think, though.
It's hard to define hardship. I mean, the state of New Hampshire, the regulations have changed, and Peter can confirm that even more so, but it's hard to prove hardship.
Will we keep the comment on the single families?
Remind me, LaBelle did it, was it
37 or
37 or 38,
39, something like that?
just shy of 40?
Any further thought or comment from the board? Dennis? No? Good. Okay. So do we need to answer the question about where we'd like to go, or just say head to zoning and best of luck?
Right, this is, you can offer whatever perspective you choose to. The understanding is that nothing is formal, so you're not taking a straw vote, you're not saying that the planning board feels this way. You can certainly take from what you've heard what the perspective is, but the whole purpose of design review is to have discussions that don't bind either party. It just gives you information.
Yeah, basically puts us before you to hear what you have to say, to hear what the abutters have to say, before we start going really hard at this thing, you know? And it kind of refines our design path, if you will, you know, moving forward. Of course, this one...
Christian starts billing.
Oh, here we go.
Well, and I guess void of the procedural, which makes more sense, I haven't heard anything in terms of objection to what's being proposed,
would the
suggested.
planning board make some sort of recommendation, like a comment to the zoning board, as far as their thoughts? Would that be something that is normal for boards between each other to comment?
It's not incredibly normal, no. I mean, they're...
But the minutes, the comments during the minutes for this section, There's no reason that could be given to the ZBA.
Yeah,
Ms.
no,
Hoffman is a member.
I wasn't going to make any comments at all on the ZBA, and I want to maintain neutrality on this, and this is a public information session, and as a member of the public, I'm taking the information. And the whole reason why I didn't recuse myself is because there's nothing to recuse from, there's no voting going on. So if you wanted a recommendation, I would recuse myself from making any comments about recommendations to the ZBA because, for obvious reasons. But as far as hearing what your ideas are and things like that, that's, everybody in town can watch this and listen to it and hear. So I'm just getting information, looking at what's being presented. So, but if you want a recommendation, I'm not going to make any comments. So.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a normal course of action between the two boards.
It can be sometimes. We've had the planning board recommend.
But they are two very separate boards.
Yeah.
The responsibilities are really different.
Yeah.
You know, they're thrown in the mix as being, you know, land use boards, but land use boards in New Hampshire include conservation commissions, planning boards, and zoning boards, and we're all really different. And we all have different rules and responsibilities, so we brush shoulders a lot, but we don't really, you know, wrestle a lot.
So barring any further comment, or if you have any additional questions, I would say.
Yeah, I think we're good. Very, very appreciative of your time and of your IT gentleman's time to actually get the picture up on the screen.
Thank you.
After
It
all.
was much more helpful than.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. You said we're gonna skip this, right? Okay.
What's the zoning on this?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna ask if you can move outside unless you want to stay for the rest of the, it's okay, it's all right, but we still have some agenda left. So next on the agenda is, it looks like a proposed change to the zoning regulations. So the board would vote to change the notice requirements for public hearings from being published in a newspaper of general circulation to be posted on the homepage of the town's website in accordance with RSA 675-7 1B, sorry. The following town regulations and planning board rules and procedures will be updated to reflect this change. Article 904, Site Plan Review Regulations, Section 5, Site Submission Requirements F, Fee for Legal Advertising, 904-5F. Article 905, Subdivision Regulations, Section 905.14, Submission Requirements. A, Application for Subdivision. 2, Fees. C, Legal Notice Publication, 905-14A2C. And Planning Board Bylaws, Rules of Procedure and General Governing Rules, Section 9, Notice of Public Hearing. And under B, Article 907, Performance Guarantee Procedures, Section 4A, amend the language for bonding of road and utility work, 907-4A. The proposed amendment to those regulations, can I just say that they're before us, or do I need to read them all in their entirety? Okay. Are posted and are before us, and would be included in the minutes, thank you. Robin, you were saying there might need to be some adjustments.
About the noticing for the
Excavation,
and the possible change to the last proposed language.
Yeah, so for the notice difference for excavations, since we don't have an excavation regulation anymore, we rely on the state law, and the state law has that language in it.
So we never have a hearing? I thought we've had hearings about excavations, including the dam, the pond.
Yeah, and we use this to state law for excavation procedures, and that's what you indicated as a change, is in state law.
It's in state law. We have it here, but as far as noticing goes, it's before the hearing starts. We still have to publish it in this, and this is the lead time on this thing. The excavation hearings have to be posted in a newspaper, as do the ZBA and the way we used to for all the other hearings in town before they changed the law.
All I'm saying is that requirement, because we used to have a full set of excavation rights.
Oh, I see.
And we don't anymore. We say that we will follow state law for excavation activity. And since that standard is in the state law.
I just thought we should say something about, and here again, it's a minor textual change, so it doesn't need to be reposted, but excluding excavation permits hearings, and just so that people reading that, an applicant reading it knows that would be a requirement,
We can say that, but
and the fees would have to show that.
what we're adjusting here are site plan and subdivision, neither of which apply to.
Excavation permits.
Right.
Okay. So we need in our fees, as Robin was talking about, maybe changing that.
On our fee schedule, we can do it, and that's
Fee schedule, we should pull out excavation permit application. Okay. Oh, because it only applies to subdivisions and not, okay. Got it.
So that one doesn't really apply, but the other one does, is the addition of the language that says for sale.
Yeah, or sale of any parcel was the term they used, yeah.
But that's in section D. I'm sorry, section Article 907, performance guarantee requirements.
Yeah, and that is about specifically subdivisions.
Correct. So the first half of this, you could vote on just as presented,
Okay.
and it would be done.
And then the fee
The bonding one, we would have to renotice because we're adding something.
right. Oh, I see what you're saying, because we're adding or sale.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's the way the state law is written, so.
All right, so then we'd be looking for a motion to accept the proposed language up to the
Is A, B, and C from the public notice.
Oh, thank you, perfect.
And that motion could be made if we would incorporate to those sections with that vote.
All right, is there a motion to approve the zoning regulations A, B, and C as proposed? Is there a second?
I'll second that. Peter.
Motion by Ellie, second by Peter. Any further conversation? All those in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously. And then we just need to,
For the second one, I would just ask that you do a motion to continue to the next hearing.
Okay, I'll move that we continue the change to proposed language for bonding of road and utility work to add the term or sale of any parcels.
motion by Peter, second by Ellie. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Thank goodness.
She would have said. Robin's sharp on that one, too.
So next up are the minutes from February 6th and February 20th.
I will move that we accept the minutes for February 6th. That was a stormwater meeting, as written.
Is there a second? Motion by Peter, second by Ellie. I can just say Peter now because there's only.
Yeah, no, I'm sad.
Any discussion?
Still have two Robins.
You didn't have any changes?
To February 6th?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
And I'll move that we approve the February 20 minutes, with the exception of line 232, the terms, the word stand should be standard, so that the sentence reads, the project is held to a much more stringent standard through another RSA as opposed to a more stringent stand. Do you see where that is, Ron? Okay. Otherwise, I'll move them as amended.
Is there a second? Motion by Peter, second by Ellie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. All right, and now it looks like planning board application and legal advertising fees. Did we covered that here?
It's okay.
Let's postpone it.
Sure.
I don't think it's urgent to do that tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that way you can draw up that addition of this excavation thing fee, and we can put that as a separate fee.
I have a few things, but I'd rather.
Okay. And then we have an invoice to civil construction management, or for civil construction management, sorry, and that is, looks like a review of the Eversource site plan for $75.
Okay.
Is there any reason that shouldn't be approved?
Sign away.
And a second invoice for $150, and that's for the LER and McDonough lot line adjustment plan. Okay, I'll take perfect as a yes. There are those. Do I have to read this? I do have to read this, don't I? All right, so we have a letter dated 3/19/24. This is to the Kingston Planning Board. Dear members of the Kingston Planning Board Committee, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing on behalf of Elm Grove Companies to express our interest in placing a permanent trailer in the Millbrook RV Park's gravel parking lot adjacent to an unused campsite within your beautiful town. This was posted, right?
Yeah. Oh, the letter?
Was it?
No.
No,
It's
okay.
just the board
Before I
communication.
continued reading, I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Our proposal entails setting up a food selling operation aimed at serving both the campground residents and our public. We believe that this endeavor will not only enhance the amenities available to campers, but also offer an opportunity to engage with the local community and foster a sense of collaboration. The selected location, while currently unused, is equipped with water, electricity, and sewage hookups, making it suitable for our purposes without necessitating extensive infrastructure modifications. Our intention is to utilize these facilities responsibly and in accordance with any regulations set forth by the town. We view this venture as a pilot program to gauge the interest of campers and residents alike in the offering we plan to provide. We aim to create a convenient and enjoyable dining experience for all patrons while also contributing positively to the local community. Elm Grove Companies is committed to working closely with the Kingston community and abiding by any guidelines or requirements set forth by the planning board. We value open communication and welcome any feedback or suggestions you may have regarding our proposal. Thank you for considering our request. We look forward to the opportunity to contribute to the vibrancy and enjoyment of Kingston's recreational spaces and to becoming an integral part of the community. We will be returning to the planning board in the near future with proposals for the future development of Millbrook RV Park and look forward to working closely with you and the town to ensure all requirements are met and we create a win-win scenario for us all. Please let us know when we're able to come to the next available planning board meeting so we can discuss future plans. Sincerely, I'm not going to get this, Michael DiGiamarino, Elm Grove Companies. This reads to me like there's two things: the consideration for the food truck, and then subsequent to that, a return visit to talk about other plans.
They're trying to get a lot accomplished down there.
Okay.
And they have to do a new site review with us.
Yeah.
Because they want to expand and go on to the island that's on site there, which I don't know how feasible that is, but it would be part of the site review, so it's nothing we can talk about here. But this, I'm torn on this. They're asking to be able to put a food truck on the property that would service both campers and the general public.
Yeah, that needs a site plan. It's a change of use. It would be a site plan amendment just for that. It was very vague about what he means by trailer too. Some people use that term for mobile home. Some people, when you talk,
food truck.
Food truck. So a travel trailer has been converted to a food truck. So you're not eating it as a restaurant and stuff, because there's like a camp store concept that wouldn't really require a site plan review if it was a place that sold food. That's where he says we're selling food. Well, are you selling prepared food? In which case you have health requirements. So all
the way he described it to me was that it is a food truck.
Food truck. Okay, so that answers a lot of the questions. The other question would have to be, it would have to be seasonal because of our campground regulations and everything else. He's hooked up to a thing now, to a septic and power supply. So he's basically a trailer that's hooked up at a trailer site at a seasonal campground. If he wanted to run a full-time food truck out of there, the way the people who proposed it at the BFW site, that would require a complete amended site plan and all the inspections and regulations and stuff like that, and it would be an auxiliary. It could be an accessory business because it would help serve in part the people at the campground, but it would definitely be a new business. It wouldn't be a camping related business. It would be a food truck business, and it certainly. That's one good thing about having the food truck ordinance now is we've got something to go on, and it's probably permitted.
So how does the board feel?
Could they move forward with the food truck without coming in for a site plan review?
No, we required it for the other one. No.
So then it would seem to me that we need to reach back out to them and say that's the next step.
What degree of site plan? Are we asking for
expedited?
What they're doing is using a site that already shows on the site plan. It shows it's a trailer, not a food truck hookup, but
right. Well, the other thing about food truck is that the septic system requirements are significantly different for food preparation, and this we ran into on the other food truck application. Where you have to have a certified kitchen, preparation kitchen available, and you have to have a septic system that's designed for food preparation. that there's also kinds of permits and state requirements for food preparation facility. And that's one of the things we ran into. Oh, right, yeah. So I really think, and I'm guessing that they're looking at trying to get year-round use, and that would be not part of the expedited site plan, because that's.
They're hooked up to one of the sites, right, for utilities, and the campground closes down for the winter. It would be closed down for the winter.
It would be closed down for the winter. But, I mean, that should be something we make very clear in the site.
If you open up to the public, are there other restrictions that go along with it? I mean, that really is
Yeah.
a major change in use. If it's not just the campers, but it's open to the general public. More traffic. Change in use.
More traffic.
Yeah, traffic, something.
I said, what isn't, I mean, wasn't, for a long time they closed the store there, right?
I don't know what they had for a store there. They have already cleared that parking area site, and.
Because they had a store, then they didn't have a store.
Okay, yeah.
And now there's already another store. That's their goal.
Right.
And it's been put on hold because they haven't gotten up to date site plan.
Maybe Pedro should go visit it.
They've already, Pedro's had a nice discussion with them already.
Well, it also brings up.
From the town's perspective, not so nice from their perspective.
Well, it also brings up the fact that they've started construction right down next to Mill Stream. There's a lot of excavation, filling of wetlands, and dumping of material there. I noticed that yesterday and today when I drove by there, that there's.
Well, none of that is authorized.
Well, I agree, but that's part of the whole, site plan is you have to be in compliance with your existing site plan, and I would think that that may be a recommendation to make to Pedro is to find out what's going on, whether they have any permits.
My response to this letter should be,
What are you doing?
we believe that you need to do an amended site plan for the food truck. And by the way, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, you could probably word it differently than that.
Gee.
So,
Because I'm like this kid, he's a kid, this kid is a kid. Well, not today.
this, Michael,
Usually the tie I'm wearing is older than him. This guy is not old, but most of them are. He's really young.
this, Michael, do you, yeah.
I'm really disappointed to hear he's doing something.
Well, I don't know if it's illegal or not, but it certainly looks, because it's been graded and it's right next to the water. Needs to have been some kind of, and that's a.
Construction activity there that shouldn't be that close to the water.
Yeah.
You notice it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm not the only one then.
Well, it's the code enforcement of the town that is really necessary and things like that.
Yeah.
But we make you code enforcement for that. No, you don't.
Would you like to be? Would you like to be for the purposes of this?
Take a look, I certainly would.
If we're gonna ask them to come in,
It has to come from the board.
Yeah,
That's
that's
our
code.
So
we can make a recommendation.
I will CC my letter to Michael to you guys. Okay. And my letter to Michael will say, in a much sweeter way, what the hell? And then we'll probably get Dennis out there.
so,
The building inspector can go and see, because it's code enforcement, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
what.
but it's code enforcement stuff that I guess Pedro would rather you look at.
Well, if there's any question, I can take a look at it from an engineering point of view, but he probably could look at it and say, see, that there's construction work going on there, we can recognize that, we're cool with that.
I would hope so.
And the BUS just gave him enforcement authority.
We do that every year, Peter.
Yeah, okay.
That's standard.
Yeah, I know, it's just, they've delegated that to.
So we would not require, correct is what I'm hearing, we would not require an updated site plan if it were just for the food truck, but any other activity on the site, or any change of use, an engineered plan.
We would require a site plan process.
Okay. Could be expedited, correct?
Yes, it could be.
twice, 2 times it could be.
Are we going to invite them to a meeting?
If you work through this, he has to.
Because it sounds like he wants to come in and let us know what else he wants to do.
Yeah, well, he knows that what they majorly want to do, they completely are starting from scratch. They have to do.
I don't, I mean, could we add him as early as the 16th?
Oh, let me talk.
Okay.
He may want to combine everything into one
And do
site
it
plan
all at
review,
once.
because
But are you going to forward that letter to the select board? Because let's know that we need to have a little bit.
Oh, yeah, my letter is going to be CC'd.
Okay, all right,
Absolutely. I just promised that.
Anything else in your pile over there?
Write myself a note. I just don't know, do we want to mention that all of the zoning ordinance have passed?
Yeah.
And so I will be providing.
Oh, that brings up another issue, that since you're going to be doing updates presumably to the ordinance book?
Yes.
Yeah, we should discuss something that Chris had talked about with you guys before. We had voted to delete preamble 3 without remembering that it's not our book to edit. And it went to the BOS with our, as our recommendation. And Glenn Koppelman pointed out that a lot of people use that page to see if the book is up to date, that their copy that they have is up to date. And Robin can give you the background on this. It was a letter from an attorney who wanted to know, who wanted updated code book, because the one online had last been updated in 2013. And we pointed out that Ellen had been making the amendments in each section where that it was amended. She put in parentheses amended, March 20th, 2015 or whatever. So I think the recommendation, if you remember, this is the way I had it from the Board of Selectmen, was that Chris would come back and suggest that we update that page. And I volunteered to Lynn to research the dates of all the town meeting dates.
Why don't we just direct people to the website? Why are we wasting time on the book?
But this isn't the paperwork. The website book has the same issue.
The website hasn't been updated?
The website,
No, so
that one page hasn't been updated. The ordinances have been.
Oh, I see. I know what you're talking.
Yeah, and so my recommendation is that instead of deleting that page, that based on the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, is that we just add the dates of all the town meetings that had zoning ordinance changes or any ordinance changes.
Let me ask this question. On each ordinance, don't we have a date the last time it was updated?
Yes.
The ordinance itself. If you take this out, then the only place they can see that is on the ordinance itself.
Right.
So you don't have to spend the time waiting.
I know,
What I'm hearing
but they didn't used to. That only started recently. So when an ordinance gets changed, it's at the top before the title. It says amended, enacted, 1962 or 72, and amended, and it gives a bunch of amended dates. Then you have to look for the most recent amendments will appear in parentheses after the amended portion of that ordinance. The way to find out if the book is up to date would be to go to that preamble 3 page, and this is the problem the attorney had, was that even though it had lots of amendments since, that page said 2013 was the last amendment. We have another possibility. You could have at the beginning of the book somewhere just saying amendments complete through 2024 when she does the amendments.
It should be something like that at the beginning of the
Oh, microphone.
Mike, just
Mike.
push the red button.
You don't want to have to possibly go to the website every time you want to do that. So you make a copy of it in files and you say, I hope this is the most recent rules and regulations. So if it's that first page, that's all you have to look at. You don't have to thumb through the whole thing to see if these are the most recent.
That feels like a good compromise that'll get us, that will save somebody the trouble of going back through, which is just to say, instead of all those dates, reflects changes through.
Up to a certain date, yeah, exactly.
We do have the dates on the
Cover?
contents page, so anytime we update it, the date changes on the index of contents. That's what I would think.
Yeah, as long as it's something right at the beginning to know.
Or on the front page, the way we do with our rules and regulations, we put we put a date on it on the cover, and that way we know we're working on the current one. So my recommendation is somewhere in the beginning of the dang book was we put the the date that it was made current, and then again. And then we've got to go back to the Board of Selectmen, since there's, the Board of Selectmen also, for example, even in this last, they changed some of the ordinances that aren't related to planning and zoning. So, there's a whole bunch of sections in there that are their purview. So it's really their book, and they're the ones who decide how they want it. So we can make a recommendation to them, as we've done before, and they can say, talk about it and say, no, we want all the amendment dates, or yes, somewhere it says this is.
There isn't anywhere else that use that book. We're right online all the time.
It's the online version that has that page in it. See, the online is exactly the same as the printed version. It's identical.
I guess because I never would find it.
Yeah, and that's what happened is that attorneys do. So. Well, but that was the issue. The select board decided not to take it out.
So can we just make a recommendation to reinstate preamble 3 with language that says reflects amendments through this date?
Yeah, and then.
And does that?
And we don't have to go back through all the history?
No, no. Let's
Yeah,
not
because
do
we know
that.
we're missing stuff.
If somebody wants a history, you can always get it. That's not really what the goal is.
No,
Yeah,
the goal is just to
they-
have somebody look and say, is this the current version? Yeah, okay.
So just keep preamble 3 with a date.
Yes.
Yeah. Includes all
And
amendments.
then note to whoever that needs to be
Updated every time.
updated every time.
Did we make a motion on this?
No.
I don't know that do we need a motion? Oh, we did.
I think we made a motion to remove it.
We did, and we voted it, and then, since it wasn't ours to,
So we're just making a recommendation right now to
yeah,
who? The
we're voting on a
select
we can vote on the recommendation to do that, just what Robin said, either both of them said. And then that would be a recommendation, and you'll hear it again, and you can tell the rest of the board, get it over, says, take it or leave it.
board? And that would go to the select board, correct?
On February 6th.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to reinstate preamble 3 amendments, amended to read A, reflects amendments through the following date with the current date. Does anyone want to second that? Motion by Robin, second by Peter. All those in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously.
Were we supposed to vote on that resignation?
No.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Lynn said we were supposed to.
Oh.
Didn't we vote?
No, you read the letter.
Let's put it this way.
We got stuck in the middle, because then we
I
didn't
think you
announce it.
did, but I don't think you did the vote. And I actually have a note on.
There was a motion, there was a second, but there wasn't a vote. Not that I, I'm new to this.
Oh, okay, so, yeah.
I'm learning.
So does anyone remember who made the motion?
Probably Peter and me.
Yeah.
Let's
Welcome
just
to the board.
remake it. So can we make a motion to accept? Steve?
He so moved, Peter so moved, Ellie seconded it.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously. Steve, thank you for your service on the planning board.
That doesn't make sense.
You can't make them stay.
Yeah.
Well, Lynn said they wanted the board to acknowledge it.
A lot of towns will say that you accept their resignation with regret.
Regrets, yeah.
Actually, that's what.
Was that the language?
Because what is the vote?
It's a meaningless vote.
Someone made a motion, that's all I know. You gotta vote.
You have to say with regret resignation for this.
When do they start the burgers? That's all I
So
wanna know.
does
When do
whoever
they
made
start
the
burgers?
motion want to amend it to
Amend it
say
to-
they accept with regret?
Yeah, I don't remember who made it.
Gratefully accepted.
Yeah, there you go. Agreed.
So moved. Do we have any other business that we need to tackle this evening?
No.
Okay.
I think.
You said no.
No, did we, no, I'm asking you, did we deferred voting on officers till
Next month.
next month? And then we can discuss project lists. So I would recommend that people know of things that want to get accomplished
In the coming year?
in the coming year, that, and that would be at a working meeting.
Okay,
So the next working meeting that,
which is our next meeting,
our next
correct?
meeting,
Yep.
I would suggest that we maybe submit to Robin ideas.
Okay. Any other business? Barring none, I will, or barring any, rather, call the motion adjourned at 9:57 PM.